thumbs up when you are ready to roll. Okay, good morning, everybody, and a warm welcome to you all. We're here at the Strategic Planning and Policy Ahuaki hearings, and warm welcome to everybody. We don't have any councillors online this morning. First, I would like to open up with karakia, and I'll head over to Bill. Tēnā koe, Bill. All right, I'll open up with apologies. We've got one from Marcus Gower this morning. Are there any others? No? Okay, we'll have a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Claire. All in favour? Carried. Any disclosures of members' interest this morning? No, no one has got their hand up, so we'll keep moving. Oh, sorry, Bill. Yes.
Sorry, just to disclose that I've got whakapapa that relates to most of the groups that are being presented from Mana Whenua today.
Thank you, Bill. I don't think we'll worry too much about you needing to leave the room. I think everyone's perfectly happy with that. And I suspect many of us are in the similar position as well. All right, our next item is our draft Ahuaki Waipa Community Spatial Plan and draft implementation plan. And I'd like to invite Kirsty. Morning, Kirsty. This is a good day for you, of course, when we get to hear from all of our community. So I hand over to you.
Tēnā koutou katoa. First of all, I'd just like to begin by acknowledging Vanessa, our project manager, who is not able to be in attendance today due to sickness, but is watching online. So just want to acknowledge Vanessa and the wider team, elected members, our Mana Whenua and iwi partners, key stakeholders, and the community who have all inputted into the development of Ahuaki, our Waipa Community Spatial Plan, as you've indicated. Liz, it is a significant milestone for this plan. Kia ora. So the purpose of this report is to receive submissions on the draft Ahuaki Waipa Community Spatial Plan and the draft implementation plan, and to enable verbal submissions to be heard. As you're aware, these documents were publicly consulted on from the beginning of October through to the beginning of November, and we received 138 submissions on the proposed implementation packages. There were 5 of those, but 56 submitters overall. So of those, a number have requested to speak today. We've had some last minute withdrawals, and we've yet to have confirmation from a couple of those submitters. But we've also received some additional information provided by 3 submitters in advance of the hearing today, and that information has been provided to you in diligent at tab 6. So noting that, we are going to be recommending a small amendment to the recommendation that you make when you receive the report today to acknowledge that additional information. I'm happy to respond to any questions. Otherwise, I would like to respectfully request that we bring up the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsty. Okay, any questions for Kirsty at this point in time? No, nothing. That's fantastic. Okay, if I bring everybody please to page 8 of our report, we have a recommendation there, A through to D. I won't read through the recommendation, it's very straightforward. Just noting that we are accepting, of course, the late submissions as well. All right, so if there's no queries around that, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, please. So Bruce is happy to move that. Roger is happy to second it. All in favour? Carried. Thank you, everybody. All right, so that brings us to our hearings, and we've got Simon in the room who is probably not well, very familiar to many of us, actually. So Simon, would you like to come up to the seat, and you will be our first submitter for today. And thank you very much for coming in a little earlier. We really, really appreciate that. Simon's submitting on the Te Amutu AFC, and on Diligent, it is on page 94. So the next 10 minutes are yours. And if you've got, during that time, if we've got an opportunity to ask a couple of questions, that would be great too. Yep, press the button. That's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Madam Chair and councillors and your worship for giving us an opportunity to make some submissions on the spatial plan. And certainly we applaud the council for its vision. Its principles behind it align very much with what the club is trying to do and provide for our community. I think we've spoken before about the growth of the football in the Tiamutu community, and I think you're aware of it. But it's really reaching a bit of a tipping point as to what the club can do to support the people that are in its community, and there's a real pressure on resources. So knowing that the council is looking at the spatial plan and what's available and what can be done is something that we fully endorse. We've got a real pressure, as I've said before. We've gone from 17 junior teams to 34 junior teams in the space of a few years. We now have 8 senior teams for the next year, 3 ladies teams, and we have 2 playing pitches in Tiamutu and 1 for training. The juniors are all condensed into one small area, and so we are trying to do what we can to make the most of the resources that we have here. And part of that is also speaking with other partners such as schools and being able to obtain access to their facilities, spoken with other clubs. And we've also had a lot of interaction with council staff, which has been extremely helpful. And I think everyone is fully focused on the community and wants to push ahead and do what it can. There are, and we're not ignorant of it, the significant constraints that council has, whether it's financial or regulatory, and so there are only certain things that can be done. But we would really urge that there be some focus given to what can be done to help the football community. And it's a significant part of the local community. That there are over 500 members, and there are a lot of families behind that. And the sport is growing, but it's also the opportunities that the club can offer to juniors. They've got the ability to have a sport that they can focus on rather than other things. It provides them with some structure, and we want to be able to develop that more. We want to be able to develop some skills programs and academies and the like, which we're doing as well. And that all ties in with the spatial plan and the thinking behind it. So it's improving the community resilience and well-being, and certainly by people being involved in sport in all different capacities and levels, that is something that works for them. So fostering a sense of belonging, all of that is part of being part of the club. So we don't want to come across as being needy. We are trying to fund ourselves as much as possible. For example, we're trying to develop our field so we have more lights, so we can train at different times, and that's all something that's been sourced by the club through funding and sponsorship and grants. We fertilise our own fields, the council's fields, but we take on the maintenance of that ourselves. But some support is desperately needed for things like irrigation, and we've spoken with council before about that. And I thought there was some positive responses, but I think funding is always a bit of an issue. But if those fields, and because we understand the financial constraints in council, developing brand new fields is difficult and costly. But if we can make the most of our existing resources, our existing fields, by, say, irrigating them, maybe helping us with some of that maintenance obligation, then that goes a long way towards making those fields resilient and more use can be made of those. So there can be some small wins that can be achieved. And I know we're talking about the spatial plan, and the aim is that that's in the medium term, 3 to 5 years. But we probably would urge council to consider maybe even a triage option, looking at the priorities and seeing if there can be some emergency assessments and initial scoping done to understand where there are some real priorities to push that through a bit earlier, as well as looking at what can be done with maintaining and helping us with those current resources, the playing fields. Other possibilities are even behind Anchor Park. There's quite a lot of area there. If we were permitted to be able to try and develop our own fields through fundraising and grants, that would be great as well. Trying to once again, maximise the most of the resources that we have. So it's a little bit of the same story, but we are getting close to a little bit of desperation, and we don't want to come across as that. We want to be able to stand on our own feet as much as possible, but at some stage it's going to have to be just a bit of help would be great. So in terms of the spatial plan, fully applaud and support it. We think it's a wonderful thing for the community, and we fully endorse it. And we'd just be grateful if we could get some support and we can sit alongside you and get something active going maybe a little bit earlier. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you, Simon. I've got some questions from councillors. We'll start with Roger and then Claire.
Yes, thanks, Simon. I'm from t'other side, so I support the red and white stripe team. But
That's all right.
that's not a problem, is it? I actually support an English black and white stripe
All
team.
right.
Getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning. But I acknowledge the comments that you've made about the growth in the particular sport that you're engaged in. And I think that's going to increase, especially now as we have 2 teams in the Australian, in fact, they're actually first and second in that league. But I think that all of that kind of thing does position that sport more. But can I suggest, and you're looking at really short term and you're looking at resource allocation to develop resources, can I also suggest that you make sure that you do put a submission in to the long-term plan, because the long-term plan is really more where that kind of actual resourcing is considered. But I think you've made your point that, you know, there is a commitment in Ahuaki to the development of sports and leisure and recreation resources, which are so important for the continuation of the community.
Thanks,
Good.
Roger. We'll go to Claire.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Yeah, I kind of echo what Councillor Gordon is saying, because I hear what you're saying about the need to make sure we're getting the best use of, you know, those fields that we've got. Like, have you costed what that irrigation might look like or anything like that?
So probably about a year ago, or just over a year ago, we had discussions with council, and I think a figure of about $26,000 to $28,000. That was to irrigate at the stadium, and there would have to be it would have to be thrust under the cycling track and through. But that was some discussions, and whether potentially that could be split over a couple of budgets. There was no firm commitment. You know, we're not holding council to anything, but those are the sorts of figures, and that would make quite a difference, especially if it was done immediately. If it's a dry summer, that field is ruined. It's not in a very good condition anyway, and if we apply fertilizer and other maintenance to it, it doesn't really take if there isn't regular irrigation anyway.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And the second point I wanted to raise with you is, I'm sure that the club has also looked or approached council about upgrading the club rooms and things like that. I do recall a bit of a discussion. I think you guys own the club rooms, but I think you're saying they're also desperately sort of inadequate now for the size of the club, or you're not going down that path? at the moment?
The council owns the building.
Oh, council.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not
yeah.
the football club.
Yeah.
And they are small and limited.
Yeah.
But I guess we've just got to prioritise and probably playing resources are more of
Yeah.
a priority than the
Okay,
club rooms.
yeah, well, that's good to understand. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Claire. Any other Andrew?
Yeah, hi. Can you go a bit, elaborate a little bit more on how that irrigation would impact on, so, you know, what do you expect to, how much more utilisation will you get by that being installed?
Yeah, so the pitch is not one, so this is at the stadium, and it's our number one pitch notionally. Our top teams play in a high league and there are certain requirements on the field. We don't meet those. It's in poor condition. So just for starters, for us to be able to play in a higher league, the pitch needs to be in far better condition. We don't do any training on it, and we can only have one game a week on it at most during winter if it's been badly treated. If it was properly looked after, and ideally a whole new pitch, then you can train on it, you can have more teams being able to use it, and not just a football club. If you had one of those modern multi-purpose pitches there, then that would be a real asset for the whole community. So certainly upgrading the pitch allows a lot more use by not just football, but potentially by other sports and users as well.
Thanks, Liz. So by multi-purpose pitch, are we talking artificial, or is that a grass pitch?
Not necessarily, a grass pitch. There are two new pitches at Cambridge, and so they're sand-based, but they are quite resilient and they can handle a lot of damage. So having something like that would be ideal as well.
All right, thank you, councillors. Look, Simon, thanks for coming in today. Appreciate the phenomenal growth that you've had actually as a club in Te Awamutu. No doubt it caters to the wider Te Awamutu area as well, but also the pressures, of course, that you're facing. So yeah, thanks for coming today. It's good to hear from you and good to understand things a bit more clearly.
Right, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, we'll move on to our next submitter, which is the Te Kaupura Marae. I'm going to hand over to Dale Murray.
Kia pōrua, e ke tēnei mihi, he uri o mai na tautiri I mihi mai kia pōrua, ka te tuku I tūnei. Tēnā pōrua, tēnā koe te rangatira Cassie. Cassie, and just for everybody to know, Abby and I have a connection in a different way. Her mother's brother is more stepdads. Tēnā tātou.
All right, a very, very warm welcome to you both. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. So look, the next 10 minutes are yours and we might have some questions for you at the end as well. Councillors, it's page 295.
Ka pai. A tuatahi ka tika me mihi. Ka tika me mihi kia koutou. I tēnei wā tuatahi e rere atu nei ngā mihi ki te whare o pōtatau. Ko tūheitia ki te whenua, ki te rangi, e te kingi o te kotahitanga haere oki atu rā. Te ariki nui koini ngā waihono I te pō, ki te whenua rire hau, paimā rire. A rātou ngā pare kawakawa, koe mene atu ki tua, a haere ki te pō, rātou kia rātou, tātou kia tātou, tēnā koutou katoa. E te koromatua, e te manukura, e te tia tangata, koutou ngā kai kaunihira, kei ngoku rangatira, ngoku whanaunga, tēnei au ka mihi. Ko Kakepuku te maunga, ko Waipa te awa, ko te kōpua te marae, ko ngā tiunu me ngā tikahu, ngā hapu, ko Cassidy te mesi tōku ingoa. Morena everyone, just wanted to briefly respond in acknowledgement to you all, and especially acknowledging this hui today and this kaupapa that I'm very delighted to be presenting on. Myself and my whanaunga Amber Lee here on behalf of Te Kōpua Marae Committee, essentially to verbally reaffirm our submission that we made, and I will take it as read, but just wanted to echo the words that we shared, speaking on the process that we were a part of from the genesis, I guess, the beginning, and throughout. It's quite hard to believe, hard to imagine at this time some of the earlier engagements were via Zoom during the lockdown. So really want to acknowledge this milestone for Waipa District Council and for our communities as well. For Te Kōpua Marae, we're really excited with the opportunities that this presents. And so specifically, and I touched on them within the submission, we're really, really excited to see what this next step moving forward looks like, in particular, working alongside and in line with the way that we've been engaging over many years now with Waipa District Council, not only within this capacity, but with the likes of Ngā Iwi Tōpū, and thinking of our late Auntie Waitiahoaho Te Ruki and her contributions in that space. We feel as a Marae Committee that we are ready to move into a more mature stage of what that relationship looks like. So you'll notice that I've touched on some of the upcoming plans, implementation and prioritisation that we're very interested in being a part of. Specifically the long-term plan as well, recognising that as a key mechanism to funding many of the amazing initiatives that we have before us into the future. And so that's something that we're very interested in. From the Marae Committee's perspective, though, what that means would be specifically resourcing in the sense that what we can bring to the table is specific expertise, mātauranga, but also that connection as well to our whenua, our wai, our awa. And those are the things that are really important to us, and we feel we need to be bringing voice to, more so now than ever, acknowledging the current environment we're in. And so that's a key priority for us. I do want to note as well, and supplementary to our submission, the submission of the Kakepuku Mountain Conservation Society, and verbally affirm our support of their submission, specifically in prioritising funding, but also environmental initiatives that support the restoration and conservation of Kakepuku. I want to also acknowledge Taia Te Taiao and the amazing mahi that's being led out here, which shows what true partnership, not just with council, mana whenua, but local landowners, communities, what that can really inspire amongst our communities, and would encourage that kaupapa. I know it is, I believe through Landcare, would encourage that kaupapa to also look to include Kakepuku maunga as one of our tupuna maunga within the rohe. One of the other, I guess, paiao related aspects I would like to touch on that is not specifically addressed in the submission would be in the line of looking towards the restoration of the Waipa. And I know provisions sit specifically with Waikato Regional Council, the Waikato River Authority, but also want to, I guess, draw on the notion of our relationships and working together, kotahitanga, towards restoration of our awa. Those are some of the things that are pertinent to us as a Marae Committee, as a hapu, but would really like to just reaffirm that verbally here today. I'm just wondering if there was anything else. How am I doing for time? Is it 5 minutes speaking and then 5 for question?
You've got plenty of time, Cassidy.
Oh, okay. Trying to go through it quickly in case I run out. I mentioned the long-term plan. So Yeah, I have listed some of the interests, some of the key interests around housing, te ao Māori design, the district plans and concept plans, perhaps from our perspective, what we would like to see through. And it was evident within the plans that we were a part of co-designing is continuing that line of co-design moving forward, specifically when it comes to housing, te ao Māori design principles, but also the provisions within district plans, wanting to see plans that are permissive and supportive of the aspirations of Ngai Māori. Furthermore to that, when speaking of Ngai Māori, I'm mindful that we're speaking on behalf of Te Kopua Marae, but would also strongly encourage Waipa District Council to also, continue that partnership and that co-design moving forward with our other whanaunga, our other iwi and hapu and marae across the wider district as well. I'm not too sure who else is speaking today, but just wanted to reaffirm that as well. There was something else I did want to touch on. Oh, no. I think I covered that one off earlier with resourcing.
Maybe we can pause for questions.
Yeah, perhaps I'll pause for questions at this time if there's any from the
Yeah, look,
committee.
thanks, Cassidy. Any questions from the councillors at this point in time? Susan?
No questions, but kia ora iho. Thank you so much for both of you coming. I just wanted to really acknowledge the fulsome way in which Te Kopua engaged in this process, and appreciating also that, generally, but like us, we're sort of time poor and certainly resource thin. So I just really want to acknowledge the way that your marae engaged in such a continuous way with us all the way through the process. And I think it really bears out in some of the richness of the planning, I guess, and the aspirations that are set out within the document. Yeah, look, it's, as you noted, some of the earlier meetings did take place via Zoom. So, the process hasn't been without its challenges and has certainly been a lot longer than we had first anticipated. So I just really wanted to acknowledge that, because often we kind of look at things through a lens where we assume if we make a table available, people will come, and often it's not quite that simple. And I just wanted to really stress that your commitment to the process has been much appreciated, and I think bears out truly in the document. So well done, and thank you for coming today too, because it's just symbolises again your fulsome commitment to it.
Thank you, Your Worship. And perhaps to respond, yes, it's been a delight throughout the process. And I think I alluded to the maturing of our relationship, Te Kopua Marae. We are of a mind and in a position where we would like to consider moving forward what our relationship looks like formally with Waipa District Council, and would be more than happy to host yourself, Your Worship, and the wider council and elected members to discuss that further into the future. Tēnā koe.
Oh, that. In fact, I think we'll gladly would love an invitation. You've got a beautiful marae. It's been some time since I have been there, and it's quite special to get out of our chambers occasionally.
Yes.
And actually head to marae as well for various hui. Bill, you've got a question?
Just to report that the council is working on the Papakainga rule change. As you probably know, in your other role, Cassidy, we're waiting for the government still to make its determinations about Papakainga on a general basis. But we have completed quite a bit of the mahi that's required for that.
Yes.
And having been involved in that for a long period of time now, I know it's something that we really want to keep pushing forward. But we need to tie that in with what the government's doing as well. Any assistance we can get as a council in pushing that kaupapa would be really neat. But it's still there. It's not in the back of our minds. It's in the forefront of our minds.
Tēnā koe.
Dale Marie.
And it's really lovely to have a tuia person come back through in council, especially to see you at Otorohunga District Council, to come back here and present to us at Waipa. Kanui te mihi kia koe, kōrua hoki Amberley. It's really beautiful to hear a submission that's positive, it's supportive, and wanting to drive into the future. So, kanui te mihi kia kōrua.
Tēnā rawa, te koe.
That's a lovely way to round it off. Thank you, Dale Marie. Okay, look, again, thanks for attending today and yeah, we'll hopefully see you again soon.
Ka pai. Thank you, Chair. Kia ora koutou and take care.
Now, councillors, we've just got a wee break, so 5-minute break until 1:45. Okay, yep, so if we, are we live? Brilliant, thank you very much. Okay, everybody, we would like to welcome our next submitter from Te Manawa or Cambridge Trust, which is Dana, and pleasure to have you here, Dana. If you'd like to jump into the seat there and press the green button when you are ready to speak. So thanks for submitting to our Ahawaki spatial plan. It's a real pleasure to have you here, actually. I don't think we've had a representative from Te Manawa before, so the next 10 minutes are yours and we may have some questions for you at the end.
10 minutes. So kia ora koutou, ko waio ko Dana Iriapa Hau he uri tēnei no Ngāti Haua. So I am from Ngāti Haua. My name is Dana and I'm here speaking on behalf of Te Manawa Cambridge. And you haven't probably heard of Te Manawa Cambridge because we are relatively new. We have a vision of setting up a community hub in Cambridge and it's run by my auntie and uncle currently. So I'm here speaking on behalf of the amazing mahi that they do. So we came across the community spatial plan and we saw quite a lot of alignment with our strategic plan that we're currently developing. So we did want to submit on this and come today to introduce ourselves and who we are and work towards eventually partnering with council on some of our vision, which is, that community hub. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and speak today. I was going to jump online, but then I've got 3 young kids at home and they would have been hassling me the whole time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I wanted to say that we fully support the Waipa Community Spatial Plan and we do see strong alignment between its goals and our mission. So one of the things that we are doing is eventually putting together a community hub, and currently our operations are run out of my auntie and uncle's house. So things are getting a bit hectic. My auntie is currently working with around 40 clients one-on-one, and they also work with a bunch of different organisations in Cambridge. So one of the recommendations that we had was to prioritise the inclusion of community hubs and shared spaces in future developments to strengthen social connections and meet the diverse community needs. As I mentioned, we're working with almost 40 clients individually, one-on-one, on a voluntary basis as well. And so eventually we want to be able to set up a community hub, and we do work with the Cambridge Community House as well. But a lot of our clients are unable to access the services that are provided there. And they already are doing some amazing mahi. So we're supporting them as well as branching into our own mahi as well. Another recommendation that I had was collaboration. So we are a new organisation and we are wanting to develop a community hub. And we would just ask that the council maintain open communication with community groups like Te Manawa or Cambridge, so that we can make sure that we reflect our local community's needs and values as well. There's probably a lot more that I could go on about. And my auntie, she was going to come today. Her name is Raylene, but she said she'd probably go on for about half an hour and she'd get cut off. Yeah.
Look, I think, hey, look, you've spoken beautifully, and I know it's great to have you in the room. But what I was going to suggest was it'd be great to meet your aunt and uncle in person. So perhaps we can come to see you. Anyway, we can talk about that further.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. We would love to have some representation from council in our spaces. So yes.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's fantastic. Right, we had Roger first and then Dale Marie and Philip.
Hi, I'm Roger. I'm the Cambridge councillor. So I'd like to really say well done for coming along today. It's far better for you to be here in person. Yeah. That would have been all right if you brought the kids as well. So.
I have 3 under the age of 2, so they'd be
okay.
running around screaming.
I might withdraw that comment. But I just would like to repeat or to endorse Chair Liz's comment. Where in Cambridge is the community hub that you've currently set up? I realise it's in somebody's home currently, but where is it?
So it's currently in Cambridge Park at my auntie's house. So she's been living in Cambridge for 40 years, or most of her life actually. And yeah, so it's operating out of their house at the moment.
Yep.
Hmm.
Good. So we look forward to getting an invite, or we'll come and knock on the door.
Sounds
Good.
amazing.
Great.
Thanks, Roger. Dale Marie and then Philip.
I te tūtahi, he mihi kau ana ki a koe, Dana, no Ngāti. Haua I tū ana I konei, nā maua te he, kare mātou, o kare maua, kare mātou, I te tūtaki a koutou, I a koe, ko koutou te manawa o Cambridge. Ai, nā maua te he, nau mai hara mai, ki tēnei whare o te kaunihira. I hari koa maua I te rongo I a koe, I tū ana I te kaupapa nui o te okahoroi.
Ai.
I pānui au I te ingoa te manawa o te okahoroi, he mihi I te tuatahi. Kāre au te mōhio ko wai koutou. Engari, I hari koa I te kiti a koe, I te rongo I a koe, I tō kōrero, I tū ana ki tēnei tipu. Anui te mihi ki a koe.
Kia ora.
E hara mātou I te noki, I te kuaha, I tatari mātou, I tō koutou pānui, I tono mai I a mātou. Ai. He tikanga pai tira. Ai. Kanui te mihi ki a koe. Tēnā koe.
Yes, we will. We will definitely open our doors and send the invite.
Philip.
Yeah, good morning. Two quick comments and then a question. But first of all, thank you for coming along today and speaking so confidently and really well presented. So congratulations. And also congratulations on anyone doing any work for the benefit of the community in any community, anywhere in the country, but let alone in ours. But the question is, you mentioned they couldn't access the community house and things like that. How are they able to access your hub other than and not access other helplines or organisations?
So my auntie is really comfortable in the community and she goes to their houses and has a cup of tea with them. So she creates this safe environment for them to talk one-on-one, and then she invites them into her space and all the services that she provides.
So she runs around like a taxi as well.
Yes.
Picks them up, right?
Yeah.
So don't have cars or can't,
Yeah, on top of having 8 kids herself. So yeah, she runs around like a headless chicken. So I think she's got 3 grandchildren.
I know one family's got 8 kids and they've got 32 grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and if there's no other questions, hey, look, Dana, again, thanks for coming today. Really appreciate it. And we look forward to catching up with you again.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity and I hope everyone has a good day.
You too.
Ka kite.
You too. Oops.
All right, everyone, we're going to break for morning tea. So we'll have everyone back here at 10:10, please. Right, welcome back, everybody. Now I'd just like to a warm welcome to Ed Grayling and to Joan Forrett, who are going to just submit to us a little bit earlier today. So their submission is on page 53. Ed, you're a long time Rukahia dairy farmer, aren't you? And your parents, of course. So pleasure to have you here, and I'll hand over to you for the next 10 minutes.
Thanks, well, I just thought right. We're electronically enabled now.
We're good. We're good to go.
I just thought I'd set the scene for us just at the beginning. As Liz has said, that the Graylings are long-term residents in Rukahia. Ed and Liz have owned the farm since 2013, and his parents been in the area before that. And this submission is really about the Rukahia area and thinking about the village itself. We've given you, I printed out a larger copy of the map that shows the area, and Ed has very carefully and helpfully color coded it. So you'll see that the areas that they own are in the sort of peachy orange color. The yellow line is Southern Links. The blue ones, the bigger blue ones, are the areas that they lease, and the small lighter blue square is the school, and that pink area is also owned by the Graylings, but that's zoned rural lifestyle or whatever it's called under the plan at the moment. So that's where their home is, on that piece of land. You'll see the small Rukahia lake, Lake Cameron, and there's a few houses on the opposite side of the road from the school, and in our view, that's kind of an ideal village focus, being that lake with the school there. The Graylings have enough land that could be used for various different purposes, including potentially having a small commercial centre near that school. So actually making that village more of a village. There is proposed to be a new roundabout at the top of Rains Road, and that will also take a little bit of a bit of land has been taken from the Graylings for that. They have known since purchasing the property that there are changes likely in the future, so they've always been aware of that likelihood of there being an end date to their dairy farming operation, because it's not going to be feasible to operate a dairy farm when you lose that access to that northern piece of land. So I'll leave Ed to say a little bit more about that. The other thing just before he starts is that you'll see that because part of his land is essentially in the SL1, then he's named on the SL1 submission, and he's part of Rukahia, and he's named on the Rukahia neighbourhood submission. And I think the SL1 submission is ambivalent about Ahuaki, and the Rukahia neighbourhood submission is opposed to Ahuaki, and the Grayling submission is in support of Ahuaki. So he's covered all bases. But I'll just point out that the Greylings didn't, they didn't actually see any of those other submissions before they were filed. They're just listed as being members of the group. So their submission reflects what they're trying to achieve. And they are positive towards this as a planning process and towards getting a master planned. What they do want to see is Rookahia included into planning for Waipa 2050.
Yeah, so, yeah, thanks, Joan, and thanks, everyone. So, yeah, just carrying on from that, I guess having Southern Links become in the fast tracked by the national government sort of has been the catalyst for us getting involved in the Ahuahi submission process. And from the maps, you can see that Southern Links Road effectively divides our farming operation in half. And the challenge for us is, does that leave an economic durable dairy unit, or do we need to think outside the square and work towards a few other concepts? The main problem with that is that our family really like and love living in Rookahia. And we think that the village has got so much untapped potential in regards to housing, to natural landscapes with the lake there, the amenity values and the recreational opportunities that can be presented one day. And I guess we just feel that Rookahia needs an overall village concept plan to incorporate all of those different aspects. But I guess the main thing it needs is someone local to drive that change. And I guess from us being here today and going through the submission process, I'm almost nominating ourselves to be the forefront of that change. But I guess involving everyone else in the community and getting what we want. But having us at the forefront is probably not necessarily a bad idea, given that the scale and proximity of our land and our land holdings, not only just for the school, but also the lake and the village centre. So I think we're in a fairly good position there to maximise some of those opportunities. And the other thing we think we've got going for us is we've got a fairly good network of people around us that we can lean on. And I've got enough time and resources to sort of fully commit to the project and see that village plan come through to fruition. So there's a fairly decent timeline ahead to make all of that sort of stuff work. So
you look young enough, Ed, at the moment too. So
yeah. Yeah, so I'm still keen to work every day. So and it's been a great challenge to be involved with this and learn a new set of skills and focus a bit more about the community and the wider area rather than just inside our farm boundary. So that's and that's what we want to do as members of the community, is to contribute and give back and all that sort of thing. So, and I'll just touch quickly, but I think historically there's been some concerns around Rookahia about residential housing or building on the peat soils and that. So, and which is, definitely a concern around expanding the village. But our farm is 65% clay and 35% peat. And of that sort of peat area, the majority of that peat is less than 2 metres in depth because it's in the proximity to the hillsides. Rookahia peat swamp does get deep, out to 12 to 15 metres, mainly on the western side of the railway line. So, and the edge of our farm is still 1,000 metres from the railway line. So we're fairly well off from that, from that sort of potential challenge. Slopes up to State Highway 3. So, and up to the school as well.
Yeah, there's a wee hill behind the school, isn't there?
Yeah, all around us. So, and I guess the natural watercourse, well, it travels two ways, but it's travelling west to Waipa River eventually. So our farmland is essentially at the top of the peat basin, and then the further out you get into the swamp, the deeper it gets. So ironically, they built the railway line in the deepest part. So we didn't know that 100 and something years ago. So
this area here would be the flattest part of your land.
Of our block, and there's a little bit of clay on that as well. So not and not massive evidence of a hill, but yeah. And if you go south of that border, we're starting to get into some sand. So the peat's quite shallow there as well.
Okay, hey, look, Ed, thanks for coming in today, and Joan, who many of us know as well. I think, you're quite right. The catalyst here is the fast track of Southern Links, and Rukahia now is obviously, as a village, there are going to be some changes, and as locals, we want to acknowledge that, of course, you want to have a really big say in how Rukahia, might change. So we've got some questions from the floor, if you're happy to answer them. So we'll start with Dale Marie, and then we've got Bruce.
Tēnā kōrua. Thank you for coming today and presenting with your submission, and I've enjoyed reading your submission. One thing I do have to say though is grab a paddle and get in, because as Māori we understand when we have these yellow lines coming across our property as well. And just in regards to the lake, has there been any history done on that? Because as far as I know, that's Lake Kare Aotahi.
Yep, correct.
Yep.
Yep. Is it so the short answer is I don't know, but I think there should be. So our animals graze not up to the lake, but up to the edge of the boundary of the lake and whatnot. And we're actually, kids and I were in there 10 days ago or so, having a look around. And it's quite run down at the moment, the lake. So I'm not actually sure who's responsible for maintaining it, or whether there's actually a Rukahia Lake Cameron restoration type group or something. But I wonder if I've rung a couple of people, but they don't know. So that was my next job, is to find all that sort of information out. But it's a untapped resource that should be the centre focus for the community, not it's just behind some trees sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Claire's got a little bit of history on that actually, and then we'll go to Bruce.
Claire.
Yeah, thanks. About the lake, I'm pretty sure it's the responsibility of Waipa District Council to look after, because it'll be part of the peat lakes that we do. But there was a care group, and I'm pretty sure it was led by Wayne Green, but that was many years ago.
And John Pretty as well.
Possibly, yeah. So
I don't know. I don't think John Pretty was in charge. He's died now.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, I don't know where Wayne Green is anymore either.
Yeah.
But there definitely used to be a care group for it.
Yeah, and it probably, I mean, the council's pretty stretched on resources as it is. But I guess, if the whole community works together and not necessarily focus on the lake, but have that as part of the focus, everyone gets reward from it. So
Absolutely. And look, even though I we've heard this mantra that council is really stretched, definitely, but it's important for locals like yourself to let council know, hey, there needs to be some maintenance done around the lake. You've got to get that request put in there.
Yeah, and we're probably not aware of that process until now. And I don't personally walk around it very often. I take my motorbike the other way, but it's not somewhere you'd walk in your sand shoes.
No, yeah, that's right. The access isn't that great. And I think there were some duck shooters that used to do some work there as well. And I'm pretty sure Wayne also got corrections people, some of the inmates to do some work at some time, but that takes coordination.
Yes.
But I definitely get in touch with the council and, like phone them up or use that. I don't know if you've got the Anteno app or something, and just let them know that some
Oh yeah, I think
maintenance.
my wife Liz has that.
Yeah, and so it's easy to do a report on
It
that.
reminds me about this.
Either that or just start badgering your Parongia councillors.
Yeah, that's a
Claire and
great
Marty
idea.
and
I
Bruce.
don't recommend that.
All right, Bruce.
Ed would never do that to us, I don't think. Joan, it's nice to see you after many a year, but Ed, do you have a vision for housing opportunities in Rukahai, how you'd see it going in the future?
I do. It's all in my head at the moment. It's not very helpful, is it? So, do I have a vision? Yes. I guess it's around, it's probably that vision's changing as we move forward, but if we focus on the school for a start, we don't, I personally, and I'm only one person in the community, but we don't want the school to get too big. So maybe that's maxing out at 180, 200 type kids. I think the role is about 135 at the moment. So they've got a bit of room for expansion there, but I guess you still want to keep that small rural school type feel to it, and work along those lines. So number of houses, I couldn't actually tell you how many people. I think 300 residents live in Rukahia at the moment. I'm not quite sure how many houses that is, but I thought maybe another 200 to 300 houses, or max for the whole village, not just our land, but the whole village concept. I guess if you drew a 700-meter diameter around the school or the village, wherever the village centre might be, 700-meter circle around that, you might say that's at least walking distance for everybody to walk to school, walk to the village, maybe there's a cafe there one day, maybe there's a Foursquare supermarket, something like that. So I guess it needs to be big enough to sustain those type of businesses, but also people like to cycle and walk from all sorts of places to get to these things. So yeah.
I can sense some big changes. Hey, we'll go Susan and then Lou.
Thanks, Liz. Kia ora, nice to see you, Ed and Joan. Yeah, really, I have to say a little bit of personal sort of attachment to the area. Obviously, I was brought up at Rukahia and went to the school there along with Bruce Cuff over there. So it's a little, I feel like it's a sort of back to the future sort of moment. But look, I do think you're right that Rukahia has a untapped sort of potential. And I think with the pressures that we have in terms of housing provision, growing population, we need to contemplate the better places for people to live. Yep. And I guess the close proximity to both the city and obviously Te Awamutu creates some really obvious opportunities.
And the airport too.
And the airport, absolutely, and that whole master planning piece that is in train there. And you're right, the fast tracking of roads of national significance classification for Southern Link certainly has made your attention slightly more focused and acute, and I can appreciate that that has done that for you. So really welcome the leadership potentially that you're showing in the village in this space, and look forward to seeing what we can develop together that is sensitive to the area, the soils, the history, but also provide potentially the creation of a thriving wee community, a little village really.
Yeah.
So absolutely love your vision, and thank you for coming and talking to us today. Of course, I have a connection to Joan too. She was my chem teacher at high school, so it's just all too much.
Small space. All right, last question from Lou.
Yeah, thank you, through your chair. Ed, great idea. I can see there's a lot of value here. What I'm asking you, do you consider that you would be going for a resource consent on your land to actually get it so that it has actually rural or rural residential, and change all that so that you can actually apply? Or do you think you'd become a developer yourself, or do you think you'd put that to a consortium in time? I'm just asking questions here because in the future, you'll have an off-ramp off the highway coming to Ruakura, and you will have that huge development going north from the airport, which is going to mean that it's going to be quite an attractive place. And you might be able to, look at having and pursuing a development actually as such, with you having some say or a consortium that does that. Yes. I'm just wondering whether you were considering that, and with your land, your ownership, you would have a very key part in that.
Yeah, great challenge there, Lou. Definitely, we would be involved front and centre of the development. So we have no intention. I've had people asking me to buy our land every day just about at the moment. So I have no intention of selling because we still want to live there until forever. And I also enjoy the development side of it. So I've developed the dairy farm for the last 10 or 12 years, which I really enjoy, the planning, the whole process. So the planning through to fruition. And I understand construction and water levels and those sort of things. So shifting dirt around, I understand all that. And I have some very good family ties and friendship ties that are involved in farming and subdivisions and things like that as well. So we've got that resource that we can tap into. And I think at the end of the day, if we look back in 40 or 50 years' time, we as a family want to be proud to say, Ruakahare, we made Ruakahare. We were at the forefront of making Ruakahare as great as it is today. So rather than just getting the resource, getting the land change and then flicking the land, I can never see ourselves doing that because I've got too much attachment to the land. And this is the problem with, there's a fair few farmers in the room already, but you get attached to the land and it's sentimental as much as dollar value side of it. So the dollar value is important, but the sentimental and the pride you can take in the land development and the realization of something is probably more important.
You sound like you're Māori.
So yeah, I enjoy tidying things up. So yeah.
Congratulate you.
All right, hey, everybody, look, we'll leave it there if that's okay. Our gallery is starting to fill up. So, hey, thank you both. Great to have you here. And look, here, obviously, some big changes potentially happening. So
yeah,
I think, Ed, you're well engaged and with council staff now. So I think that's brilliant. You're on the right track. All right, everybody. Now we did ask Brian Winter to come because we were a little bit ahead of schedule. So Brian, would you like to come up to the hot seat, please? Brian's submission is on page 64 of our agenda. And you're covering a multitude of topics actually, Brian. So look, the next 10 minutes are yours. And if you could leave some space within that for some questions as well. Thank you.
Sure. Is that on? Yep, I think that's on. Yep, cool. I don't think it'll be as long as 10 minutes, but that's all right. So thank you very much for taking the time to see me. I wish to submit broad support in the Ahuake plan. Some concerns with some of the aspects which I will elaborate on and explain. But firstly, I would like to state that I was a member of the World Cafe last year. I really enjoyed that process. I did think it was a very good one and really enjoyed my time in that group discussing the spatial plan and help sort of feeding forward into what this has become. And while I guess there is general, what I'd assume general support for the plan, and we can get behind the sort of overarching strategy. One of the things that's sort of stuck in my mind about this is that, there might be consensus on the overall objectives, but there's going to be no doubt there's going to be some different interpretations into how we get to some of these goals or what these goals might look like. We might have different interpretations on that. But I come to this fundamental point in the plan, which is this idea that we preserve the character of the area, and I think that's quite an important one. Regarding the economic growth and housing sections, I guess there's a lot of interaction between the two and they do partner together. It's important that we do have that sustainable economic growth. We attract that business to the area. I personally, even though I'm a secondary teacher, I do see tourism as a key part in this. We've got so much potential in this area with our environmental and cultural tourism. As well as now that we've got Jetstar coming into Hamilton International Airport next year, there is the economic potential there. Waikato could become a regional hub, and I think that's something that Waipa needs to look at sooner rather than later, and we don't want to be locked out of any opportunity there. And of course, regarding housing, housing is always going to be, I guess, one of those issues. We need to make sure people are adequately housed, but we also need to make sure we get that balance right and ensure that our productive land in the area is not impacted greatly by that. I also want to note that it was great to see as well that the services, council services such as museums, the libraries, community facilities, they're being reviewed to ensure that there is an ease of access and is catering to the families and the local communities. There are several instances, which I'm sure have been highlighted before, where that's not being utilised. And that's not just because of a lack of, it's not necessarily a lack of engagement rather, but it's because accessing them may not compare with the modern family life. Regarding transport, which is probably my sort of big one, I support the general sentiment in the plan that ensures that there are different ways to connect the towns and the villages and the different modes of transport. However, I do find some of the points in the plan quite contradictory with the idea in page 73 of supporting rural, urban, social business connections, ensuring that traffic does not detract from the family-friendly nature. And I noted on page 31 of the implementation plan, some of the guidance notes, which I had some concern with. The first one was the considering of car-free town centres and the pedestrianisation of the road. The second one being the reconsideration of the Western Collector Road, and the third being the reconsideration of Southern Links. And I think what's important here is that we must not forget that we have centres that are rural service towns, and we're serving the rural communities. And restricting vehicle access to town centres would detriment not just rural communities, but the families that the idea, that notion hopes to serve. Realistically, families are going to use their cars. They need to transport their kids to school. There's practices, there's other activities going on in their lives. And creating carless town centres, I believe, would just move the congestion to other areas. Also, I believe there'll be the resultant people who live out in town taking their business elsewhere and voting with their feet. And the aim of having freight vehicles moving around the town centres rather than through it, I do agree with that idea. With that Western Road, there's no, particularly in Taumutu, there's no viable alternative there yet. And then when we link that in with Southern Links, we're talking about the moving of goods around the area. Waipa is impacted by that, as well as bringing that economic growth. This is something I think should be embraced. I know I'm aware it is in the fast track proposal as well. Not only this though, the vehicle fleet over time will change to EV as well. Roads are still going to be needed for these cars. There will be infrastructure that will be needed for these cars in the future, such as the charging points. But particularly relating to Te Awamutu, the plan suggests carless towns, but we've got no alternative to move that freight through. And so that's just something I wanted to highlight. And I guess council should be just careful to ensure that all modes of transport are balanced appropriately for the communities that they serve. And while there is a balance and a place for different transport modes, it should be done effectively. We don't want to look like Hamilton or Auckland or Wellington, all of which have their own sort of unique issues and have different communities. I don't think we should be trying to replicate that necessarily. Where I live in Kiki, there is a lot of anger at how the roads have been changed there. And that does bring me back to that sort of final point, that point I made earlier. Are we trying to preserve the character of these communities, or are we changing them to reflect something that we are not there? So to conclude with that, I'm supportive of the plan in general, particularly the partnering and development of tourism. With regards to the transport, I do oppose to those parts in the implementation plan. I do believe generally that, cars are not going to disappear. We don't want to punish people, make it harder for people to access these services. Part of the plan was about making sure we are trying to strive for those objectives and ensure that, people's lifestyles are not too greatly affected. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Lots of excellent points actually there, and great submission and overall actually. So Claire, question for you?
Yes, thank you, Brian. Yeah, I really appreciate all the effort that you put in to answer so many different parts of the Ahuaki sort of framework. So that was great. The thing that I'd like to focus on is your concern about the desire or the signal to try and pedestrianise the centre of towns. So generally that's done through a process that's really trying to meet the needs of the entire community. Yeah. And so the points you raise about a rural, I suppose, population that's trying to come into the centre and still do their business, I'm pretty sure that will definitely be captured and taken into account. My understanding of pedestrianisation of CBDs is it's just one section of a street, but that there's always alternative routes right next to that particular street. So the next street over that remains available for traffic, for cars. And so what's trying to be achieved is people can still come into that area with their cars, but there'll be parking areas where it's just a short walk to the main street or the area that's pedestrianised. And a lot of our, I suppose, the big retailers that are servicing rural communities, they often are just outside that area and they have large parking areas and stuff like that to cater like for trailers and utes and things. And I'm sure that they're still going to remain. Overall, I think we will definitely be doing this sort of stuff in consultation with a community that's sort of based, you know, like for Cambridge or Te Awamutu or whatever. So we capture all of those concerns and come up with a way of designing it so that those needs are met. Yeah, so it's not going to be an arbitrary thing. Yeah, and it's signalled. I'm not saying it's going to happen, you know, within a certain time frame, but yeah, it's just I suppose an aspiration. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Right, thanks, Claire. All righty, I think there's no other questions. So just want to say thanks so much for being part of the World Cafe as well.
Oh, no, thank you. No, it was a pleasure. No, it
Might
was
be able to persuade you to sit around this table one day. Yeah. Oh, final comment from, sorry, Lou
Yeah, no,
and
thank you,
Susan.
Brian. Through the chair. Thank you, Brian. An excellent submission. I thought that's well thought out. You're actually right in one big factor is that our town relies on urban rural industry. It is a service town, and that is that one of our key factors is that we do need to allow things. So the Western bypass that you're talking about would have to be considered well before we look at closing the main street. Okay, the dairy industry and all of that is absolutely vital to our survival. I also consider that with housing, we won't, I believe, grow in one group. I think we'll actually find that over time we'll move towards Kiki, mainly because of Waikeria and all of the things. And as I say, we're looking at situations that we're going to see changes. Even at Te Awamutu College, for example, reaching capacity at the moment, as you well know. And I would believe that we probably will be looking at another facility being created somewhere. So all of that is going to impact on those decisions. So thank you very much for what you've done. And I thought, you know, and the thought you put into that. Well done.
Thank you very much, Lou. Appreciate that.
Susan.
Thanks through you, Liz. Hey, Brian, nice to see you. I just wanted to echo the sentiment shared in terms of the comprehensive submission you've put here, and also to thank you for welcoming myself and Vanessa to your year 13 students, and you us using them as crash test dummies, if you like, in terms of the Ahuaki plan and so far as it related to Te Awamutu. Quick question, in respect of the pedestrianisation aspiration that Claire very aptly transversed there, would that sentiment that you've shared with us today be echoed by your students? Can you tell me?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that is something we touched on with some, and I think for the ones who lived out rurally, you may remember who I might be referring to there. They were opposed to that idea. We did have some though who did think it was a good idea. So there was actually a split in the room over that sentiment.
No, interesting, because it's them and theirs. And years after them that we're designing this for or thinking about. So yeah, interesting to understand.
It was the ones who lived more sort of local to Te Awamutu who were more in favour of it, but the ones who lived out came in were more very, very vocal against it. Yes.
Well, excellent. Thanks very much for that. It's like imagining a future that we don't quite have yet.
Yes.
Yeah, no, thank you. Awesome. Cheers. Keep up great work.
All right, thanks, Brian.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to welcome Fraser and Robert. I think you've both arrived, so I'll head up to the seat. And Bruce, you're next after that. Right, welcome. Thank you both for patiently waiting there. So if you just make sure the green button is on, and the next 10 minutes are yours.
Did we have a presentation that was available?
You've sent one through?
Yep.
Let me just double check. It looks like it's coming. There we go. Boom. How quick was that?
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you for having us this morning. My name is Fraser McNutt. I'm a planner, work for Barker & Associates. It's my colleague here.
Robert Dole. I'm the client representative for the landowners of the SL1 area.
So broadly, we're in support of the plan. We're here today to give you some context and some information around what's been going on in SL1, what it is, where we're at, what our aspirations are for the land and how that can fit in with the wider plan. Now, this is going to be interesting. Where am I pointing this? Up there? Anywhere? Yeah. Okay, so SL1, it's that bottom yellow area. I'm just going to take it that you're familiar with this area. So we've been working on this area and working with landowners, and we represent around about 80% of the land holdings currently. The land is in its rural form, it's rurally zoned, it's Waipaha land. It's got a strategic boundary agreement. Again, this council is well aware of that. I think it's about roughly 2 years old. We've got an MOU with Hamilton City Council, and we're working with them weekly at the moment because we have an approved fast track in the 149. So that is for the first stage of the development. So it's around about 440 hectares. Predominantly residential is our aspiration for the site. And we've got some industrial that's contiguous to the Frankton area to the north of the site. Obviously, we know what's happening there with the central government. We're still waiting for the Act to come out. The bills, I think it's past its third reading. So just waiting to see what the nitty-gritty of that looks like. But an application would be preparing next year in conjunction with Hamilton City Council. We'd like to talk to you about the wider context, because obviously we've got peacocks here, we've got the airport. I've just heard a submission rooker here. We're in the broader area. We want the spatial plan to take a very holistic view of the broader area, boundaryless to a degree, because development isn't going to proceed successfully without affordable infrastructure. Obviously, we're aware of the wastewater constraints, particularly water allocation. It faces many councils across New Zealand, so it's not a unique issue for this area. We want this spatial plan and any future master planning in this council to be quite cognizant of the opportunities through a southern wastewater treatment plant. That's integral to ensuring that Hamilton City environs can adequately manage its own wastewater and its discharge, protecting the awa. We've got the vision and strategy at front of mind, and having enough capacity in the network is essential to enabling future growth. Understand there's current constraints, but really want everyone to focus on future growth, because as I've been dealing with development for a number of years now, and quite often land gets zoned and it takes decades to actually get housing away. So often that's stalled because of infrastructure. So here we are now, we're planning ahead, really want everyone to be cognizant of that southern wastewater treatment plant in particular. You've seen, I'm not going to run you through every single slide here, but where we're at is we've master planned the site, we've essentially done a draft structure plan. We're working with stakeholders. We've been consulting with them for the last few years. We're well aware and supportive of NZTA's fast track for the Northern Southern Links. We'll call it the Northern Southern Links project. So just want to be quite clear too, our development's not reliant on that. So stage one, we don't need that road. I'll just keep going through here. So peat, everyone's well aware there's some peat around. The depth of that peat we're honing in on. So there is some peat that's like circa 7-8 meters deep. That's deep peat. But there is a lot of other land too that's got shallow peat, and that's the land that we'd intend to work with first. But given the scale of the site and the technology that we're looking to use to build infrastructure and preloading, etc., we've got decades of work ahead of us that we can plan to develop this land. Again, it's all the hazard mapping, etc. We'll finish that off as we come to our application. I just want to get to our fast track application here. So where we're at is we've broken the site down to subcatchments for stormwater. That's a good way to start, so you can understand holistically where the infrastructure would go. Not doing, development 100 lots by 100 lots by 100 lots. Council ends up with 20 different stormwater ponds that are vested and you've got to maintain. So we're understanding and thinking around the long-term costs for councils. Our roading network is integrated with that, and then subsequently we've got staging that's associated with that infrastructure. That staging helps us determine what bits of land should go first. And that has informed why our fast track application has gone to a particular location first, which is it's just down here. So it's 1A, 1B, it's the sort of orange area. Happy to take questions around densities, affordable housing, that sort of thing with this council. But just to give you a broad overview there, F stands for future staging. Yeah. So that's giving you a really, really broad, you got to understand what's that, circa 9,000 houses. So that's, it's a lot of development. The purple is the industrial, that's intended for industrial. 3A, 3B, we're working with that landowner right now. There's a high chance that will be more industrial. I'm well aware that the strategic boundary agreement doesn't cover 3B. The line actually goes straight through the road between 3A and 3B. Mr. Rogerson, yes. Yes, he's a good man. That's giving you a high level understanding of where we're at with high level infrastructure that would be required per stage. So it's not just let's just go with this land, let's understand what the specific infrastructure is that we need to enable that land. Again, stage one, that's, you can see there's a big focus on protecting the streams, it's the Maunga Kutukutuku catchment there. So that stream remains, it's enhanced, there's betterment. Any water that's leaving the development is enhanced. So that's going to be good for downstream and obviously the river environment. We've got to, deal with our own stormwater on site. That's our industrial. It's just big block industrial, nothing flash. And that's our presentation. Hand over to Rob, otherwise we'll just take questions. So we're in broad support of the plan.
Thanks, Fraser. Yep, no, that's awesome.
Yeah, any questions?
Okay, any questions for either Fraser or Rob? I mean, your presentation obviously was circulated prior and is very detailed. So there's a lot in there. I'm really pleased to see a lot of the walking, cycling. You've thought of everything. This is a well-established, obviously well-organised, subdivision to take place in the future. So, yeah. Any questions, anybody? Yeah, don't worry.
Tina Korua, thank you for the presentation and how detailed it is. I picked up on your holistic kupu you used quite a bit. Who's your cultural navigator?
Norm Hill.
Oh, Norm. Kapai.
Of course.
Happy now.
All right, if there's no other questions, thanks for the presentation. I guess you've got your strategic land, you've got your agreement, your MOU there. So yeah, it will continue progressing and we'll look forward to seeing the next stage.
Yes, thank you.
All righty, Bruce, Rukahia Neighbourhood Zone. Morning, Bruce. Thanks for attending this morning. Oh, you've got some handouts? Okay, no problem. Okay, Fraser, over to you.
All right.
Sorry, Bruce. Gosh.
So I just dropped some stuff to circulate. I've only got 5 minutes. So I just thought I'd focus on, I guess, quick sort of background and then really what we want to see change in Ahuaki, the document. In the back of this as well, I met with Barbara the other day, the MP, and she's written a letter of support too, just to have throw that in there as well.
Thank you.
So I initially my parents have some property in Rukahia Neighbourhood Zone. still and became involved in that with Plan Change 20. And then prior to all that occurring, I was kind of aware of that strategic document, which said that if there was big development next to Rukahia, the council would look at, connecting it with wastewater and helping the place grow from large lot resi to something else, or at least look at that option. So we went through Plan Change 20, and then I wasn't actually aware at that stage of Ahuaki even existing. I got directed onto this, and I guess I did a submission, but it didn't quite meet the dates. And then prior to that submission, I met with some people in council post my Plan Change 20 to talk about infrastructure. And they said, really what you need to do is get the whole community together and we can work out the economics of it as well. So I had a bit of a meeting with some of the locals, and I wrote a letter saying, a submission to council saying, can we please meet and talk about Ahuaki? And at that stage, submissions had closed, and then it stayed closed for about a year. I think that was after the change of government, or maybe it was Three Waters. So much has happened. It's been a long process. And then for my final submission, I guess. So in that time frame, Ahuaki sort of, the language towards Rukahia has softened, and I feel at the moment it's unclear. And I think probably what needs to do is sort of, council will need to do a plan for it. Like there's areas there, one area is 8 hectares, large lot resi, it's only got a 5 metre wide access onto the road. Just things don't work. And without planning and structure planning, I guess the potential won't be realised. There's about 50 hectares already zoned large lot resi in Rukahia. And if that was developed at a density of what like Porongia has, for instance, which is not like Hamilton East, it's somewhere in the middle, 650 square metre lots. That's for Rukahia neighbourhood zone, I think it was around 7. Yeah, sorry, I can't quite get that number from. Anyway, sorry, I don't have yeah, here we go. 15 lots per hectare. And if it was 850 per lot, the value there is around $650 million developed for the whole community. But obviously, everyone in the community has different levels of what they want to see and what not. So I think the consultation process, when I talked to the other stakeholders in Rukahia, only one person had actually been involved in an open day, and most of them were kind of a little bit unaware. And I guess Ed Grayling has sort of, when he came along, that's what's driven him. So I think there's a real opportunity. I think with Rukahia where it is, I mean, I know everyone has sentimentality about things, and maybe some areas are more in vogue for a certain type of development than others. Like on my side of Rukahia, or my parents' side, I should say, it's not mine, but my parents' side, that's overlooking the industrial area and the motorway, and the character there has changed. Whereas you go towards the school and you're still looking at open green paddocks and Mount Pringa in the background. So it might not be a one-stop shop. So I think in summary, I think the Ahuaki should make reference to removing the staging, like the staging of Rukahia should only be around when the road opens. Haupo Road has its vehicles removed onto the Southern Links. I think they should think about what's best for that area post-development. Is it, the national standards are for greater density, and we've got a few people that might be wanting other things, but what's best for New Zealand, for the wider community, for Waipa? There's a whole lot of central government initiatives on that. And then just, as everyone's been saying, just having an integrated approach with stormwater, like you've got stormwater from the Southern Links, the Plan Change 20 stormwater, and it's all going into sort of similar areas. And can we not just someone develop a plan and then link that up with pathways? It's not up to the little guys to do though. Like sometimes I think processes like Ahuaki you don't have to be a massive stakeholder to get what's right. So the planning process should represent everyone,
Yeah. Look, absolutely. And you're absolutely right, Bruce. We have to acknowledge the entire community's aspirations about how Rukahia Village might grow.
Yeah.
But it won't be done quickly, and it won't be even though the Southern Links might be fast tracked and things like that, there'll still be time for the community to take a breath, look at what
Yeah,
what
but
their
I-
aspirations
that's,
are.
that's fine, but also it can't take too long because everyone, why Ruakihi has been classified as a neighbourhood zone for a while and it's been left behind. And so with that is the opportunity that comes with it. So I don't see why other developments should be able to leapfrog other areas of the infrastructure is there. That should be what kind of makes it work. And it should just be sort of common sense and economics.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it certainly seems like infrastructure is kind of on its way. So there's a
Yeah.
real opportunity now to
It's all very
design.
close now. And so this plan needs to reflect that. This is like a 30-year plan.
No, you're absolutely right.
And also looking at the LTP, there's absolutely no allocation for any consideration of what might happen to, the old Ohaupo Road and how that, because as these guys say, like we're trying to do, it's the opportunity to do something nice. When I go back there now, I don't know if you've been back in a while, Catherine, it kind of looks a little bit dilapidated.
Right.
I'm feeling like it's not really where it should be, but that's just my thoughts. And so how do we improve that, so good
Yeah.
planning,
No,
something neat.
appreciate your comments on that. Are there any questions from any of the councillors? Dale Marie?
Tēnā koe, Bruce. Thank you for coming today and giving us your whakaaro or your thoughts about
Yeah.
being a long-time resident. I sympathise with you, 26 generations in this guy, into this land. How many members in your Rukuhia neighbourhood zone group?
So I met with about 5 of them. There's about 12 stakeholders. I think my submission, I do a table of what their stakeholding is. Yeah, in the area. But there's obviously the land around it as well, some of which are like now landlocked islands of, 5-6 hectares. It's not really much good it's not really a productive land anymore and also affected. And then there's obviously other people have ideas of expanding further as well. To be honest with you, the whole area is changing and there's an effect on it and it's not fair that it just gets held back and left behind, I think.
You're sounding like Māori too, bro.
Yeah.
All right. Look, your points are well made, Bruce.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, look, thank you. If there's no other questions, appreciate your submission. And like I said, Ruakihi is featuring pretty well today. So I think, it is certainly top of mind for councillors.
Thank you.
Right, Mark, you are next. You have the next 20 minutes. Good morning.
I didn't realise it's coming up.
Right, so morning, Mark, morning, Jeff. Nice to see you both. You're both fairly familiar to us. So you're here initially to submit on Puawai Whenua and Tabi Tiger Limited. That's right.
Thank you, yes.
And then we'll move on to the Fonterra one after that. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I've got five clients that I'm representing today. So starting off with the airport area. So firstly, I'd just like to say, some of you might be aware that I'm, aside from my day job, I'm working for the Honourable Chris Bishop and Under Secretary Court, preparing a blueprint for the replacement of the resource management system. And we're bound by confidentiality, so I can't tell you about what we're coming up with, but I can give you a few personal thoughts. And you can probably expect to see spatial planning loom large in terms of the new system. So what you guys are doing here is absolutely perfect in terms of having a 30-year timeframe. Doing a strategic plan for your district is absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure you will see that as part of the new system. It'll probably be different insofar as it'll be less words and a lot more maps. So it'll be genuine spatial planning in terms of looking at all your constraints, natural hazards, opportunities, where does your infrastructure go, all that type of thing. So a lot of that you've already got in here. So you guys are going to be having an absolute flying start in terms of that type of process. So firstly, just congratulations, great job. And it's nice to come along to a hearing and not be having to chuck too many rocks. It's more just
Oh, we love the fact you're not chucking rocks either. Right.
So in terms of talking about the airport area, this is something that I've been banging on about for years, and that in my 35 years of practice, I've been working for quite a number of parties around the airport. Everything that has happened around that airport in the last 35 years has happened as a result of individual motivated people or organisations doing their own thing. So that includes Meridian 37, the airport, Tabi Tiger, and now Puawai. So everything that's been happening has been as a result of, or you can go back in the days, Powerbeat. There's been so many things that have happened. Tomra, that Jeff was the CEO of. Basically, everything has happened by way of non-complying activity resource consent or private plan change. And we've been saying for a long time that someone, and Waipa is probably the best, most appropriate organisation, needs to grip up on this area. And rather than just having future-proof, put a little green dot on it to say strategic industrial node, where you don't know where that starts or stops, because it's just a dot the same size as every other one of them. What needs to happen, and you guys have actually done it for the first time, you've put a ring around it and you've got it right in terms of the area. So when you look at the maps on, for example, page 65 of Ahuaki, and on page 76, which is sort of a heat map in relation to transport, you've got it right. You've now got an area identified, which is the area of interest in terms of developing. You look at what happens around every major airport in the world. You get light industrial activities with an emphasis on freight forwarding and logistics. And that is exactly what is proposed here, is a major multimodal freight hub, where you've got the benefit of having an airport, roads of national significance, and a railway line. And bringing that railway line in is a real key to the development of this area. And so that requires some big thinking, and it's sort of scared people to date. And then you look all down the eastern side of Airport Road, it's all zoned rural, and you struggle to find anything that you'd vaguely describe as rural. There's a horse trainer down the southern end. That's about it. The rest of it, there's 3 lifestyle blocks in the middle of it, and then you've got, you've got all sorts of things. You know what's there. I don't need to list them off. None of those activities reflect the nature of the current zoning. So, and included within that is the Tabi Tiger property land area, which we are well advanced in terms of advancing a private plan change with a focus on developing an agri-tech precinct, which will be something new for the district and for the region. There is nowhere in the region where you can have a fully vertically integrated agri-tech business without needing a resource consent. Because when you think about it from the point of view of, you can do the production stuff in a rural zone, you can do the industrial stuff in an industrial zone, you can do the office stuff in a commercial zone, but there's no zoning that actually provides for that full vertical integration. So that's the sort of the focus. It's not the sole sort of type of activities, but that is the focus for that Tabi Tiger land. So basically, so in terms of the interest of Puawai and Tabi Tiger, really supportive of what you're doing in terms of identifying that area as needing to be master planned. I've been speaking with Robert Brodnax, and I understand he's got a KPI to get something organised this side of Christmas in terms of what that might look like in terms of master planning. One real key thing is that with structured plans like this, and this is something that's been a little bit of a problem with Future Proof, is that if you're not in it, you're stuffed in terms of getting things happen. And what you need, given this is a 30-year strategy, it needs to have the flexibility. So if you are not in there, doesn't mean that it can't happen, okay? This is like a flying start, if you like, in terms of if you're in there, it's helpful. But if you're not in there, that should not be a one strike and you're out type of situation. And when I talk about Fonterra, I'll give you some examples of that as well. So, and then in terms of the one thing that we did have a little bit of a concern about was when you get to the section on environment. So if you look at page 71 of the document, it's got this little squiggly line around there, around the southern edge of the airport area. and it's referred to as areas under pressure from future development. And it appears to be sort of portrayed as some sort of concern or something that we need to worry about or something like that. But that seems to be a provision in Ahuaki that conflicts with the identification of that whole area as future development. So yeah, I'm just not, it was just the way I perceived that. I might be wrong about that. But when you read the, areas under pressure, I mean, that comes across as a negative sort of thing, whereas actually this is an opportunity. This is a massive opportunity, particularly bringing the railway line in, developing that whole area with compatible activities, activities that are compatible with the airport.
Thanks, Mark. What I'll do is I'll ask Kirsty to come back to you in an email with an explanation of that, if you like.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. So that's probably those are the key points. Obviously, we, highly supportive of what you're doing. The first time someone's gripped up on this, and it'll be great. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark, for the glowing, compliment. We'll take that. Now, any questions from around the council table? Monty?
I just got one about the railway.
Yep.
The requirement for the railway to be adjacent to the airfield. It's sort of not totally intuitive that, because what railways carry planes kind of can't. Can you elaborate on that?
It's more, I mean, there is always the possibility of some sort of rapid, transit in terms of passengers between the city and the airport, and obviously field days, as an adjunct to that as well. That's probably not really the focus of it. It's more a freight sort of bringing freight in to that area, and it being like we've got proposals like, for example, we all think we're doing the right thing, putting our recycling out on the side of the road. Do you know where it's going? Landfill. Most of it. So it's a case of, so basically we've got one of the proposals is a 6-hectare plastics recycling facility, which would basically deal with things nationally. And that needs to be by a railway line. And so we've already been talking with KiwiRail and bringing a side together. So that's just the first activity that would bring a branch line in, or a siding on there. And we've been talking to Futureproof about this. We've submitted to them over years about this, and they just go, nah. So that's why. So we're really pleased that you guys have identified this as a growth area, and that's the sort of that's just one example of the sort of activity that would benefit from the railway line.
Okay, any other questions for Mark? Yeah, no, look, and you're quite right. I mean, the land you're talking about, it's in our district. It is, it is time for us to essentially master plan the area, which is what you have been asking for some years, and others around you as well. So it's our job. Right, if there's no other queries on this, we'll let you move on to the next one.
Okay, so just before we get to Frontier, I'll just talk quickly about Honeycomb. So lodged a submission. So Honeycomb owns a block of land that is on the southern, at Ahaupo, on the southern side of Ryburn Road. And you probably see the submission, so there's some pretty good plans showing where it is, and also showing the concept for a large lot residential zone. So it's essentially a continuation of what is to the north, and utilising the benefit of the southern side of Ryburn Road, where the intersection goes out to the highway on the outside of a bend in a 70k zone with a right turn bay already there. So the Ahuaki on page 111 basically draws the line around the existing growth, the existing development and the existing growth cells in Ahaupo. Now we have, my client has consulted with all of the landowners in those additional growth cells, and the reality is that nothing is going to happen in the short to medium term, and may not even happen in the long term. So this is not actually providing anything in the way of supply of land for Ahaupo. There is zero supply at the moment. You cannot go out to Ahaupo and buy a section. There is nothing available. This land to the south can be developed pretty quickly before these guys even get out of bed in terms of doing anything else. So we've been talking with council about it. It's been agreed that we'll advance it by way of a private plan change. And this, Ahuaki is silent on it. And so we've made some, and it's actually got some provisions in there that are a little bit sort of constraining. So we sort of suggested some additional wording, which is that, because it talks about a review of Waipa 2050, but we're saying alternatively, a proposed expansion of however can be considered by way of a private plan change into the Waipa district plan. I mean, that's a statement of fact in any event, but it'd be nice to have that in there. And also there's a statement in there about consider providing 3 water services. And then it says, this is a prerequisite to intensified and expanded development. It certainly might be a prerequisite to intensified development, but it's not a prerequisite to large lot residential. The whole purpose of large lot residential is you don't need to be serviced with wastewater. That's dealt with on site. So if we could just have some, so, you know, maybe just a little dotted line around the bottom or something like that.
Maybe, yeah, okay.
Something in there that just says, this is under consideration and may or may not happen depending on its merits. Okay, so that's just a little plug for that one. Now Suzanne is on.
She is online, yes.
Online?
So Suzanne, if you want to pop your camera on, and you're moving on to Fonterra then. Hi Suzanne, nice to see you.
Kia ora, morning.
Oh
And,
dear. Sorry, you're our
Sounded like a Dalek.
Yeah, we can't understand you. It's very garbled. Do you want to just log out and come back in again? We'll see if we can fix that. Possible we're not going to be able to fix that.
Okay, that I can just
Yeah, you're okay.
do it, yeah. So Suzanne was wanting to just sort of give a little bit of an introduction and an overview. Okay.
Yeah, she gets on.
Okay.
oh, morning. Is that working?
Unfortunately not. You sound like a computer.
Yeah. Pick up your phone, Suzanne.
We're going to
You there? That's okay. What I'll do is I'll just put you on, I'll put my phone by the microphone and to see if that works. If you want to, do you want to do the sort of introductory spiel that we talked about? Hang on. Okay, let's try this. Okay, away you go.
Okay, is that working?
Yeah, it's working well. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for accommodating me. I'm away today and so can't be there in person, but thank you for the opportunity to join. I'll keep this brief with the technology issue. So as Mark has covered off, thank you for the opportunity to be part of this process. Fonterra is supportive of Ahuaki, and we really appreciated the opportunity to comment on the draft and to see those provisions come through into the final document. We support a strategic approach over a 30-year time frame. Just getting an echo, is that an echo already? So it's pleasing to see that Ahuaki has a spatial planning approach, and in particular we support the recognition that the sector is the largest industry in the Waipa district, and we support it recognising the economic value of the dairy industry. The Hautapu and Te Awamutu site have a combined replacement value of 1.5 billion and play an important role in the Fonterra supply chain network and Fonterra's overall operation. Both sites have been operating for many years, 110 years for the Hautapu site, employing 300 people, and the Te Awamutu site has been there for 140 years. So it's really important to us that Waipa continue that recognition of the value of those sites. And we're pleased to see that the site being referred to in the map legend, and as part of the master planning area, the Hautapu area is included within that. And that aligns with those higher order planning documents such as Future Proof and the RPS. Our one comment really refers to the importance of reverse sensitivity and land use compatibility, which is a very critical issue for Waipa. In particular, we have instances at Hautapu where we are managing activities that are coming to the area, and we work quite closely with them to ensure their effects are comparable and compatible with our existing activity. So we look for some further recognition of that high-level concept. I'll pass over to Mark to talk to that in more detail.
Okay, thanks, Suzanne. I'll hang up the phone. Can you still hear through the having dialed in?
Yeah, if you can hang up, or at least just go with that.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Oh, there you go. Improvise,
Well
adapt,
done.
improvise, adapt, and overcome. Okay, so I said to you earlier the point that I made about if you're not recognised within our Ahuaki, that shouldn't be a penalty. The examples that Fonterra is probably one of the best examples. So if you think about Litchfield Dairy Factory and Darfield Dairy Factory, they basically established out of nowhere. The best council planners in the world do not know what's happening inside the boardroom of Fonterra. They do not know what's happening with the global dairy market. They do not know how quickly things need to respond, what's the centre of gravity in terms of supply and the lack of capacity, the locational characteristics in terms of the nature of the land. And in the case of Litchfield, you had a state highway, a 110 kV transmission line, a railway line and a gas pipeline all converging on the same place, right, which happened to be in the centre of gravity in terms of where the milk supply was. And just perfect. So it's that type of thing where, and this, as I said before, this has been the problem with Future Proof, is where you go in with a new proposal, something like that. First question, how does this fit in with Future Proof? Well, of course it doesn't, because it wasn't dreamed up by Future Proof. And we want to make sure we don't run into the same problems with Ahuaki. So it needs to have that flexibility. That needs to be explicitly recognised in the document. And so that it's not a negative if you come up with a bright new idea. Okay, just carrying on, there's just a minor point on the maps. Fonterra sites are referred to as milk factories. If we could just change that to dairy manufacturing sites would be preferred.
Fair enough.
As Suzanne said, we really support the identification of the Hautapu area as an economic activity master planning area. It's huge what's happening at the moment. We're advancing Plan Change 14, which is coming up for hearing next year to provide an additional 79 hectares of industrial land, less a bit of a reserve. And then just moving to reverse sensitivity. This is one of those things that's often sort of, given the odd sort of yeah sort of reaction. But the reality of it is that it is a really serious issue, and it is absolutely directly relevant to spatial planning. And that's one of the key things you might see come out of the new legislation, is that a key part of spatial planning is figuring out what goes where. And part of that is, and one of the most, and I've said in the submission here, is that Ahuaki should explicitly recognise and state that the separation of incompatible activities is one of the most fundamental principles of sound planning and resource management practice. That is just planning 101. And it's not been done well in lots of places around New Zealand. And, to the situation we get with consent applications that we still have to go through for industrial activities, where people come along and say, no, that dairy factory shouldn't even be here anymore because this is now a lifestyle block area. So we really need to think about the compatibility, buffer zones around areas, restrictions on rural subdivision. Where do you put your residential growth cells vis-a-vis where you've got your industrial areas? I mean, I think you've got it largely right in here. It's just a case of, if we get that importance and headlights up the front end, then it can flow through into planning documents And Waipa is one of the better examples of having specialised in dairy industrial zones. It's got noise contours around the sites and things like that. So that's been something that's been built up over the years. What we've suggested is a couple of paragraphs of actual wording to insert into Ahuaki to address that issue. So hopefully you can consider that and see if you think that's cool. Two final points. One is in relation to transport. Is that it would be fair to say that the document is sort of a little light on its position on things in terms of transport. It sort of just talks about what's sort of been happening or might happen. I would have thought that in terms of Waipa, putting its best foot forward, you'd be wanting to be really positive about Cambridge to Paieri, about Southern Links. And also the third bridge is conspicuously silent. I know that caused a whole lot of concern earlier in the year, but for something that's a 30-year horizon, the fact that the third bridge in Cambridge is not even mentioned, I've done word searches, I couldn't find anything in there on that. And that's obviously relevant to Fonterra because its milk products can only really go, or the milk and milk products can only really go by road or rail. And so the roading is a key matter of interest. So that's something we think should be expanded upon, take a position, be the leading light in terms of we want these things to happen. Anyway. And finally, if you just look at probably the best example, so if you look at page 97 of the document, 97 is probably the best example. So you can see in the top northwestern corner, there's a little chunk out of the plans. That needs to be filled in because that land is actually zoned industrial and deferred industrial. So these maps are obviously a little bit out of date. This plan change 17 rezoned that land. So it's on the corner of Hautapu Road and Peak Road. So that's referred to as areas 6 and 7 in the Hautapu structure plan. So it's in there, it's part of the C9 industrial growth cell, but all of the plans in here that are showing the urban boundary have not reflected that. So it's just a little update that's needed. And that's quite important for Fonterra because it's far more compatible having industrial areas around its dairy factory. And I did lodge a submission on behalf of the Hautapu Landowners Group. So the two landowners there it's a collection of Hautapu Landowners Group, and to the south is Karma Trust and Dairy Coil. So that's just an accuracy sort of thing.
Yeah, no, look, thanks for pointing that out, Mark. Question from Roger.
Not a question. I'm just saying that I enjoy reading your submissions, Mark, in general, because not only do you identify a challenge, but you also present a possible solution for us to consider. So I think that's really good. Great to see your overall support of this spatial planning that Waipa have moved into. I acknowledge your comments about there being no reference to an additional river crossing or third bridge, if you want to call it a third bridge. But your submission is lacking a chapter that perhaps could be put into the.
Yes, just to your earlier comment, I mean, over the years, I've always been, learned, when you're presenting to a committee, there's always that question, so what do you want us to do? So you need to answer that. So in this case, in terms of the third bridge or the additional crossing of the river, I mean, I wouldn't expect that Ahuaki would suddenly magic up the solution because we know it's not that easy. What I would have expected was that it would be identified as a strategic move that needed some further investigation. So a bit like what you've done with the airport and what you've done around Hautapu, you've identified it as a master planning area. So you've acknowledged that, you've signalled to the community, this is what's going to likely to happen in there and we need to do more work to get to a point of figuring out exactly what that looks like. And I think that's the approach you should be taking with the third bridge. And it's probably in a wider context about transportation more generally. You've got obviously it dovetails in with the Cambridge to Pyeri project, that you've got the RS Sands application. There's a, I've lodged a submission on that, talking about north facing on-ramps on that southern interchange and things like that. So there's, all these things are linked together. So that's why I say it's not just a pick on the bridge or where that should go. It's looking at your whole strategic, you know, what does Cambridge look like in the future in terms of transportation? And that takes you out to Karapiro, and it takes you, you know, to the district boundary to the west and things like that. Yeah.
And the reverse sensitivity issues that you're talking about, and you're talking particularly about our capital, but of course we're realising those currently as well.
Yep.
In Paipaki Road, where you've got a mix of rural lifestyle blocks.
Yep.
And change of agricultural form.
Yep.
That's causing that same kind of reverse sensitivity issue.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. You're going to get it everywhere, and particularly where you've got land use change and things like that. But you've got, in terms of where it really bites is the interface with larger scale and industrial activities and infrastructure. Yeah. And that's where the airport has, you know, like most airports have done a really good job in terms of having, you know, noise control boundaries, having, like in Waikato district, it's a prohibited activity to subdivide, you know, below 1 hectare in that Tamahiri area in the flight path, things like that. So it's actually identifying it in Ahuaki is really important, as it's not just the airport, the runway and a few buildings around it. It's looking at what is the future of that area, and looking at what planning provisions are then flow from that to deal with reverse sensitivity.
The necessity to have that 30-40-year window.
Yep, that's right. Yep. So when someone comes, so say for argument's sake, someone came along with a proposal for a retirement village right adjacent to the airport. You know, you can then point to this and go, hang on, that's just an incompatible land use for something, for an area that's going to make a hell of a lot of noise. You know, you remember when Kiwi Air came in and people in Tamahiri objecting to planes coming in at the night. I mean, hello. It's, if you live by an airport or a highway or a railway line, expect it to be used more, you know?
Bill.
Very fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kia ora,
So,
mate.
yeah.
I just wondered whether Te Awamutu Factory had much to say in terms of the Western Access Aotearoa route, and your timeframes or Te Awamutu's timeframes in terms of when that should be applied, with a special consideration of kihiki and the tankers that go for a kihiki, which has become quite congested, and there's a lot of small businesses, food industries going in there. Did you want to make further comment on that?
I haven't spoken to Fonterra specifically about that, but I can say generally that the more you get tankers out of the CBD, because at the moment a lot of them have to go right through the middle of the Te Awamutu CBD. You know, the better. If you can get them out onto arterial roads, the better. That's better for Fonterra from an efficiency point of view, because they usually less side friction, faster speed limits, things like that, and therefore more efficient. So I would imagine from Fonterra's perspective, you know, I understand, because I'm talking to Brian Hudson, because we did the T4 growth cell plan change that's been lodged. And it was just determined that Western Arterial was uneconomic, and they were about to uplift the designation, and we said sort of just tie-ho, because what we've proposed is to use part of it and have a collector road which goes along the railway line. So it's a cheaper, so it doesn't go over the railway line in the manner that was proposed, which created all the cost. So there's a much more cost-effective way of achieving a lot of those benefits without the costs.
Oh, we wait to hear more on that one.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Mark. Appreciate all of the different opportunities and businesses that you're representing today.
Yep. Cool. Thank you.
All right, now we have Nick, who's going to join us online, and Rob, who's still in the room, as our next submitter. And then I think we're going to try and squeeze Hazel in before Catherine, if that's all right. Catherine, you're not in a rush? Okay, brilliant. So welcome, Hazel. Now, Rob, we haven't had some difficulty with the online, so let's see if Nick does come through, and then otherwise we'll prepare you to phone him and pop him through the microphone.
Mark showed me what to do, so I've got Nick ready to go just in case
Nick,
So
do you-
hi everyone, again, Robert Dole here. So for TPL, I'm their project director looking after the first stage of Northern or Precinct North. I've also been working with the airport for the last 6 years, and Nick is the principal planner at Harrison Grierson, and he's been working with the airport for a number of years on PC20, which we concluded earlier this year. So how are you going, Nick, for talking?
Kia ora, everyone. Let's try
Oh,
that.
no, that's not going to work.
No
Hang
good.
on, Nick, I'll be ringing you up.
We're using the phone. Yeah, it appears we've got an ongoing issue here. So yeah, we'll just get Nick on the phone and use the secret
You there? Yeah, try that.
secret technology.
Oh, speakerphone?
Yeah.
Shoot.
Speaking next to the microphone.
Did that work all right?
Yeah, we can hear.
Perfect.
We
Nick.
can hear you now.
Excellent. Good, good improvised thinking, so that's good. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks for giving us a slot to talk this morning. What I thought we'd do is, like Rob mentioned, I've been working for the airport and Rukiahuia properties for the last 5 years now, to really around the Northern Precinct and what we're the master planning and plan change that we did to expand that, and also more recently some sort of so we can talk to you a little bit about that, and then I'll also touch on the appeal that we've had underway on the regional policy statement, which references the future-proof document and the long-term growth planning that TPL and RPL want to achieve around the airport. So we had a mediation on that on Monday, which we settled, and can't talk about details on that because it's still legally privileged, other than just to say the submission that both TPL and RPL have made on Ahuaki is entirely consistent with the outcome that we've achieved on that appeal. So hopefully that gives the councillors and commissioners some confidence that it's consistent, and there'll be some consistency between the policy documents that exist for the region. So what I thought I'd do is we've got a detailed submission. We have had some correspondence with both David and Vanessa before and post making the submission. So that there's various references around where TPL and RPL think that some edits need to be made and where support's made through the whole document. I think generally as an overview, I commend Waipa for initiating this process. I think it's a good document. It's very easy to use and to understand, and it will put the council in good stead around the longer term growth management and urban growth for the district as well. So there's really 3 points. What I'll do is I'll just cover those and then I'll hand you back to Rob, and I'll try and join online just to hear any questions, but I'm sure Rob can answer those. So really just in a simple way, the first one is Precinct North, which was rezoned through Plan Change 20 over the last couple of years, and which was made operative in the middle of this year, is 130 hectares. In previous iterations of the district plan and the spatial plans, it was the reduced extent, which was around 46. And so it's really important now that the Precinct North zoning is operative and is in the initial stages of being developed, that Ahuaki recognises the full extent of it. So it's 130 hectares. We've got some images in the submission, but it's already outlined in the district plan. So it should be relatively easy for that to be aligned and adopted, and that it's entirely appropriate that the spatial plan picks out the extent that is in the district plan currently. That Precinct North extent will provide for both short and medium term growth at the airport of industrial land. But RPL and TPL also think that it's important to take a longer term view and also start providing for some long term growth around the airport. And there's a really logical extent. If you turn to page 3 of the submission, there's an image there that shows the northern precinct as, or precinct north as the red extent, which is A. And then it also shows the Southern Links designation. Now, the Southern Links designation, I'm sure you know lots about, but it's recently been included as a road of national significance. It has a lot more certainty than it has had in the last decade of it going ahead. And what it does is provide quite a strong direction for urban growth in the long term in this area of the Waikato. And what it does is it effectively orphans some rural zone land that would sit between Precinct North and the Southern Links designation alignment. And we think that's a logical extent for long-term growth around the airport. So call that the Northern Precinct expansion area. It's about 60 hectares, and we think it's a logical expansion extent. Creates a well-defined boundary, and sort of taking a more longer-term view, it'll separate potentially some of that residential growth that we'll expect to see happening as it moves south from Hamilton and Peacocks down towards the airport there as well. So that's the second point. So it's important for the spatial plan to show not only the extent of Precinct North that's zoned at the moment, but also take this longer term view. And that's entirely consistent with the submission and the appeal that RPL and TPL had put in to the regional policy statement. And then the third is really just commending this master planning process that Waipa will be involved in, presumably also with future-proof partners around not only the airport, but this northern part of Waipa. We do see it as being an area that's going to be under a lot of pressure to change. And I think it's important for some really good master planning to take place over the next wee while to really set out what that long-term direction is going to be in a nice methodical way, and really support Waipa being involved in that and taking the charge on it. TPL and RPL are keen and would like to be part of that master planning process at the right time. But as a minimum, recommend that that Northern Precinct expansion area gets picked up in that master planning extent as well. It's a really important process for planning for infrastructure and the efficient use and development of infrastructure, so that this long-term direction around the airport and the northern part of Waipa gets set down really solidly. So whatever infrastructure goes into the ground now can provide not only for the current needs, but also that longer term. So we're not in a scenario where we're ripping up pipes that were put down a couple of years ago, or likewise roading, installing roading and constructing roading that's not fit for purpose for that longer term view. So those are the 3 points I'd just like to leave you with. I'll hand over to Rob and I'll just join online. So I'll hang up now, Rob, and over to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. Any other
questions?
Yeah, any questions from the councillors? No, I think your submission is very succinct. We are obviously aware of what you're been doing anyway. So appreciate the time that you've taken just to continue to update us and remind us that of what's going on.
Well, thank you very much, and I enjoyed not talking too much today.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Nick. Online. All right, so we were just going to sneak Hazel in. Hazel, are you okay to come and do your submission now? Does that work for you? Would you like to come up to, would you like to come up to the, or would you rather not? Yeah, come and talk to us now, and then you can, I know you're not well, so do you need some help? You're okay? You're looking fabulous as always, Hazel. Is it for me? Yeah. Yeah, we do it.
Yeah, that's the one.
Thank you.
Yeah. We did that. Okay. Thank you.
Just watch out for Mr. Brown.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. My goodness, I'm back again.
Hazel, it's lovely to have you back in our council chambers, of course. And look, the next 10 minutes, if you need them, are yours.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And really, I've got caught out because every time I've sat down to write down what I wanted to say, I thought, oh gosh, that's a bit windy. And when really all I want to talk about to talk about today, and with quite expression and absolute meaning, that something has got to be done. And it's really about our kihikihi. And I just listened to, I couldn't actually really hear because, you know, I forgot to put the hearing aids in, although I thought they were in the bag and they're not. So hearing aids and glasses and all the rest of it. Like when you get to 86, you have to think a few things have run out. But the big thing that I've put some energy and effort into was looking at the Turata Reserve and what we could have done there that's not going to cost a fortune. Every time I look at it, I think, what on earth is going on here? Because it's got long grass. It doesn't tell any history of the place. In fact, it's really difficult to get into. In fact, a lot of people that I managed to chat to said they find no reason to get in there, except that up the top there is the best view of Waipa that you can get anywhere in the whole of the Waipa district. And so, but also it belongs to our Māori, our Māori people. And so I've asked them, what could we do here? What can we have here? And they said, look, we can have, why can't we have a decent lawn? Why can't we have gardens? Not too many, but to make the place look historically. And I think I found all the words in here. Have your say. Well, I really did underline a whole lot of stuff to have my say. But that's what we want. That's what we would like to have there, is a bit of pride shown in that particular place. Now, a few of our Māori people were going to come today, both of whom have just recently lost their husbands, so they haven't supported me here today. But every time I go into town and I look up there and I think, why did we agree to this? Because I recall, now where did I put that? Anyway, some time ago, when I actually spoke to our Māori people to say, what do you think if we get this put into proper lawn, somewhere nice? We don't necessarily say gardens, but that's something that might go with it. You would come up with a plan as to how you would work with Māori to actually get it looking how we want it to look. And they keep on saying, and you're not spending millions. In fact, if you're spending thousands, I'll be surprised. I'll be saying, so who are you getting to do the job? They're obviously, after money and not quality. But I really would like to say that we, oh damn, I can't find it. I sat down with this last night and tried to. After reading the draft Ake Waipa Community Spatial Plan, I am totally convinced your excellent, well-informed and development plan has more positivity and sense of cultural narrative relating to our heritage. What we would like to see is the hillside and par site started with marking a garden, a lawn, a garden, and a walking paths to the area to again light up our Māori community with their history has to be told and respected, to be told in a historic place. So 3 to 4 years ago, I had consulted the Kihikihi folk, got their support and sorted out what to do about the heritage areas, and they agreed unfortunately, I went into hospital and struck problems of it, only recently shaken off the problems. And here I've written a little note to myself and mentioned the powers. We actually, at that time, had our Māori people saying, well, look, we need to put a couple of powers up there. And we all thought that was a great idea, that we could have. So it says that this is a historic place, and this is how we would like it seen. And on the travelling to Auckland and looking at all of their powers in the paddocks, I thought, yes, we can do that. So we'd got that far. I'd been over to see, because the land is somebody's got a big say in it. Sorry, sometimes I can't find my language because I've had a little bit of a stroke since then. But who said that it was, what's the word I'm looking for? It's got a thing on it that you can't build on it. You can't do things on it.
Covenant or something.
Yeah. But I talked to them and said, this is what we would like to do there. We're not going to spoil anything. And they had agreed, and I've come back to council, and this took me three to 4 years to actually get all this together. But then, as I say, I dropped out of the scene and nobody followed it up.
We need to help. We need to find out where that project is at. And I suspect Dale Marie and Bill will be interested in this as well. So can we follow that up for you, Hazel? And we'll come back to you, because I know how important this is to you. I remember many years ago, there's lots of conversations about that space, and we need to acknowledge the history and acknowledge the community aspirations around it as well.
Thanks for
Is that okay?
Because so you do remember.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm so thrilled about that. And I'm hoping that you can get it done soon. Some of us oldies sort of head off upstairs. And I want to see, I would really like to see that done. But will it fit in? Will you be able to?
We're going to follow that up. Oh, Dale Marie, did you want to say a few words?
Kia ora, Hazel. I am just warmed by having you here today, and speaking the way you speak about Tūrata just warms my heart. And I want to especially acknowledge you for the proper name of Tūrata as it is. And I want to commend you for the aspirations and all the work that you did do, because Bill's sitting here going, yes. So like Liz said, both Bill and I will be very interested in the work that you did. But I'm sure, as someone who's sat at this table before, you know how it does take a few cogs to get things going. Yeah. But we'll come and we'll have a chat to you. We'll follow this up, and we'll go out to those Maoris out there and have a chat, eh?
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
awesome.
I will be watching out for it.
No, you're coming with me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for listening to me. I kind of, yeah.
It's lovely to have you back in the chambers, Hazel. It really is.
Hey, it's so good to see you all, but you're all still doing a great job. And I have to say, I'm thrilled with all the work that you do. I do.
And I know you've been a great supporter of our cycleways in Kiki and the cul-de-sac. So thank you for your support and being a leader in your community and helping make others realise how important those cycleways are in Kiki for for the long term.
It's just absolutely amazing. I don't want to take up your time, but it's absolutely amazing. A street that I live in that had big trucks and motorbikes and goodness knows what, along with little children, small children, preschoolers, and now it's quiet. And now that you can hear the kids playing and laughing, and when the fear is all gone of somebody getting killed on that road. So thank you very much. That Kihi's on a roll, and that's why I would like to see Tūrata.
Okay. Thanks again, Hazel.
Thank you so much, Hazel.
See you all. And I'm off.
You can stay and take the chair.
All right, I'd like to welcome Catherine and Graham, who've been waiting very patiently. Thank you for allowing us that short deviation. So yeah, look forward to hearing what you've got to say. So you're here on the Waikato Regional Airport, New Zealand National Field Day Society and Te Awamutu Developments.
Thank you. So I'll roll through with starting with the airport. So I'm supported here with Graham Dwyer, who's a property advisor for the airport. So look, these are themes that you've probably all heard before. We're just here to reinforce those themes as well. But I guess the first point that we really want to make is that we really appreciated the engagement that we had with council in the preparation of Ahuaki. And there is a good recognition for the airport in the document. So really the points of our submission, which are actually on page 175 of your agenda, is just to highlight the three key messages which we continue to traverse, which is how the airport's represented, the importance of Southern Links and public transport connections to and from the airport. So in section 4.1 of the submission, we've really addressed the first matter around visual representation. You've also heard from Nick Rala today on behalf of TPL and Ruakura Properties Limited about how the Northern Precinct is visually represented. In terms of the airport specifically, and there is an overlap between the two, we made a number of points on page 4 of the submission, and I think points 2, 3, 6, 7, and 8 are the ones that are particularly pertinent to the airport submission as well. So these are things around you know, some of the mapping, the fact that Hamilton Airport is now an international airport and can be shown as such on the documentation, the use of consistent language, and just some consideration of various other statements in relation to the wastewater treatment plant and the one of the directions there as well too. So look, that's probably the key part in there. Southern Links, Nick touched on this already as well. It's now a RON, it's been elevated. Ahuaki recognises that elevation in terms of Cambridge to Pairere, and we really request that the same language is given to Southern Links and the importance that it's going to be having in terms of the growth of that region in the future as well. And I think that focuses on the transportation section. So we've made some suggestions about improvements that could be potentially made to Ahuaki in that regard too. The last bit is public transport, and this is the one I feel like I'm always repeating. But look, it's coming through now. The direction there's still no direct connection between Hamilton and the airport. This needs to be rectified. It's going to be a major employment hub, and the airport is, you know, regionally significant infrastructure, particularly with the recommencement of international flights as well. The Regional Land Transport Plan has seek to address that in their document, and we just request that there's some consistency between the two documents in terms of how public transport provision is really recognised and provided for in that space. And that's submission for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on that particular point, those points? I think that you're quite right, Catherine. We're all over it.
I just have to show my face. And
absolutely, and it's good to constantly be reminded as well. Roger.
Yeah, and both Liz and I are on the Future Proof Public Transport Subcommittee, and of course we are aware that they stopped that on-demand public transport service, and unfortunately after that there was the announcement of the international. Now, whether that would have made any difference to the longer term trial of that flex service, not sure.
Yeah, so we're expecting about another 100,000 passengers through the terminal as a result of the international flights.
Yeah.
So that would be about another third increase from what we currently are.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're right, there is a need for public transport to link with the airport.
All righty, okay. Well, should we move on to the New Zealand National Field Day Society?
Great, cool. You're released.
Fran?
Thank you. Cool. So the field day submission is on page 138 of your agenda. So Peter Nation and both Jenny Vernon give their apologies. And you get the succinct version from me because Peter's not here. So don't tell him I said that. So look, again, similar to the RAL submission, the Field Day Society has 3 key points as well. So we've traversed 2 of them, so Southern Links and public transport. And the third one is really around strengthening the role of how the Mystery Creek Event Centre is articulated in Ahuaki and its importance to the region. So our submission provided quite a couple pages worth of background and history. And in particular, it looked at and provided some facts and figures around the scale and frequency and economic contribution that the Mystery Creek Event Centre is actually contributing to the region. And I guess the key point that Peter really wants me to make is this has been supported by the site's really enabling zoning and the planning framework that enables that. And that's directly contributed to its success. It is driving more opportunities for events within the region. And I think there's also follow-up events which are now occurring. So I think we're destined to get the boat show for the first time next year as well too. So look, there's pressures in Auckland and some of those other major centres and a lot of those event venues, and the Field Days and Mystery Creek Event Centre provides a really unique and bespoke and event venue that can cater for those types of events which are getting pushed out of Auckland. So really the Field Days is really keen, Field Day Society, would like to see the contribution they make to the region given the appropriate recognition. And we've suggested a number of changes. Again, those are on page 5 of the submission around what could be done to improve the recognition for the Mystery Creek Event Centre in terms of Ahuaki. And I think for me, probably the key one there is it's really easy to lump Mystery Creek Event Centre into the airport environment, and it does, but there's also perhaps a need to signal it out as its own sort of entity within that space as well.
No, you're quite right.
Yeah, so we really get to this, and the way that Ahuaki has been drafted right now, it kind of agglomerates the two together, but it would be nice if it had its own recognition so that it doesn't look like a poor cousin to the airport. Yeah, too. So I'm not going to go through those specific changes. I think they're pretty self-explanatory. And then just again, reiterating that Peter and the team at the Field Day Society support the statements I've just made in terms of Southern Links and the public transport provision, because whatever gets provided in terms of Southern Links and public transport to the airport provides that opportunity for the Mystery Creek Event Centre as well too.
Thanks,
So that's the
Peter.
short
No,
version.
appreciate that. No, and look, and Peter has come to us around the table in past years, and we absolutely hear what he's saying and the importance of the event centre there.
Right. Cool.
Questions? Any questions on Mystery Creek? Otherwise, we'll move on to the Te Awamutu developments.
Right, I'll get
That's okay.
Levin.
Good afternoon. Thank you for attending today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great, so thank you for this. The submission for Te Awamutu Developments is on page 298 of your agenda. So with me today is Levin Da Costa, so he is the developer of that site. So we're moving, I guess, away from the airport, back towards Te Awamutu, the northern edge of Te Awamutu, Ohaupo Road. So Te Awamutu Developments is the proponent of a private plan change, Plan Change 29. Plan Change 29 seeks to rezone approximately 25 hectares of land from a rural zone to a residential zone. And it's directly adjoining the urban edge. live in, owns the whole site. He's a willing developer, ready to go. But it's one of those idiosyncrasies, and it's not identified in the gross sale in Waipa as a gross sale in Waipa 2050. So the focus of today's submission is to just talk about what that plan change is trying to achieve, and also and ensure that Ahuaki is not precluding opportunities for appropriate growth outside of what has been identified in Waipa 2050. And look, I stumbled in on Mark when he was presenting.
Oh, you heard about the dotted line. Yes,
yeah, the dotted line. Look, and it's just this consequence of where we're at. We've got this policy framework, and we've got future development strategies which are leading into future proof, and I guess there's a fundamental concern that just identifying land areas for growth doesn't necessarily mean they're going to actually be developed as well too. And look, Waipa 2050 is 7 years old now, and perhaps hasn't delivered some of the density expectations that the council was hoping to see too. So in terms of plan change 29, I guess the key point I want to make there is, whilst it's a residential plan change, it's got a clear objective of providing housing options for an ageing population as well. So the plan change has a component which is a retirement village and planned lifestyle, so approximately 180 retirement villas and 160 apartments. But then it also provides a freehold model also for people that are transitioning into senior living as well too. So I think as we move forward through the years with our ageing population, we need to be more innovative of how we are providing for different housing options and different models for housing, and in the flip side, freeing up housing for families as well too. Not everyone needs a 4-bedroom house when they're in their 60s and 70s anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I need to downsize. How often do you hear that? Yeah. So look, the submission traverses some of the deficiencies we see with the current growth, Waipa 2050. We acknowledge that one of the actions from Ahuaki is to update the growth cell. But as I said before, we're stuck in this little wedge of not being provided for, so not being enabled to potentially get the support from council for the plan change to move forward as well. So touching just again back on the key topic. So Ahuaki identifies that one of the struggles, well, one of the challenges for Waipa is an ageing population. And it uses the figures that approximately it's going to double, and that 30% of the population is going to be over 65 too. So I guess whilst Ahuaki recognises this demographic change, it doesn't signal how we're going to address that change. And just providing for rezoning sufficient land for residential purposes, in our opinion, is not going to address that issue as well. And we can look at Cambridge as an example of the size and scale of retirement villages that are actually being built. Most of the providers are looking for a minimum 8 to 10 hectare sites to actually deliver something of scale. Tamahiri, it has space, but they're sitting at 25 hectares in terms of land use as well too. So there's a scale in terms of delivering of that type of form of housing. So I guess the point we want to make is that whilst it may appear that you're doing the right things in terms of providing for development capacity by zoning sufficient residential zone land, this is not actually achieving the outcomes in terms of providing for an ageing population. If I bring you back to the Cambridge example, there might be some people in the room who remember that when Te Awa established, that was on land that was rural zoned, it was identified for growth. We had a hearing in the town hall and it was cold and it was miserable.
And it was leaking.
And it was
Yes.
leaking, yeah. But now that's going to be enveloped by basically the residential growth in that area. And, with the sizes that residential retirement villages need, you're not going to get them agglomerating within towns. They're going to be sitting on the edges because that's where the largest land holdings are going to be. We presented a similar submission to Future Proof on this matter, and Future Proof identified that this is obviously a fundamental concern. And they have done an implementation plan. They've set an implementation plan objective of understanding the retirement sector demand. So in the submission, we actually quote what that looks like. So we welcome that, and we seek that similar recognition in Ahuaki has made. So as long as as well as your growth planning, you need to be thinking more forward and planning for an aging population as well outside of that growth. So we've suggested some changes to what you could do there, which someone else that said has acknowledged that suggested changes are great. So provided those there. And I, again, won't take you through those in detail. Cool. And the second part is that pathway for additional residential development outside of identified growth cells. So Ahuaki is not a future development strategy, but the intention is that it will inform the next update of Future Proof as well. So the concern that Te Awamutu Developments has regarding the elevation of the status of Ahuaki is that we get limited into the pathways for providing for alternative growth cells as well. So and I guess the key concern there is that market conditions, site-specific constraints, will impact yield and return, and doesn't necessarily mean that what we thought we were going to achieve with some of the previous growth cells in terms of density is what you're actually going to see delivered on the ground as well. And there again, I just make another point there around the age of Waipa 2050. It's 7 years old. Ahuaki's a future strategy for the next 30 years. It's great that Waipa has had Waipa 2050 because some districts don't have it, and it's been quite challenging in that space. So we support it, but we also support that flexibility really too. So that's the key points for that submission.
Look, thank you both. Yeah, that's yeah, excellent. So any questions from around the chamber table? No questions. Bill.
Thanks for the submission, and yeah, it's good to hear. But I just wondered about affordability.
Yeah, Levin can directly afford to answer the questions.
See, the beauty of it is because, it's very important to understand this whole thing about what we are into. We are just not developers, we also build the dwellings. So what generally happens is you rezone the land and a developer picks it up and rides the market. And when the market is up, they develop a stage, release it to the housing companies, and then the housing company comes and builds a dwelling. So at each point, there's a profit margin, or as you would call, clip the ticket. What we are into is we pick up the greenfield land, preferably on the urban edge. So therefore, go through a planning process. So our entry cost of acquiring that block is far lower than when you go and pick up a rezone land. In the past, this was raised by some of the Waipa Council officers with me. Why aren't you going and buying one of the rezone lands? So yes, we can go and pick up that land, but we're already picking it up at a very high entry level, not necessarily getting the block to develop the project we envision in that block. So so coming back to affordability, we pick up rural land, go through the zoning process, we develop the land, and we build a dwelling. So we are able to supply a product now at a far sharper price. Because we are doing the whole hog, and that's our main line of business activity, it is not in our interest to land bank. So these are the two factors that I keep in, and we are doing this just not in Te Awamutu. We're developing these villages pan New Zealand, and in every zone change, this is a question asked. What about affordability? This is how we can bring an affordable product. I do want to share with you that we've got a project. We've got the largest rezoned block in South Waikato district. And we've rezoned that and are able to provide housing at 150 to 200,000 for an average size family dwelling, less than what anybody can provide in Te Awamutu. The reason behind it is we picked up a farm block, went through the rezoning process. We're currently providing first home buyers with a product at 649,000 on a 600 square meter section. So coming back to affordability as regards to this block, we would love to provide product that's very sharply priced for senior living. The other thing is our senior living product is not just the ORA model or the license to occupy model. We are planning to have unit title model. We are also planning to have some fee simple titles. So people do not lose that capital gains that they actually lose when they go into a typical retirement village. So we're trying to provide that whole thing and create a community there. So people from 55 plus would have a product that we position for them. We would have a product for more senior living. We would also provide for care facility. So it's a whole community we want to create. And to do that, we need large tracts of land. We need to get it at the right price. Otherwise, we can't provide the product. So I just wanted to humbly
Yeah, look,
submit this.
Thank you for that explanation. I think it sums it up perfectly.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
And yeah,
Thank you.
nice to have you here. All right, everybody. We will. Oh, Luke, do you want to have a say?
Thank you, Catherine. Just quickly, thank you very much. I'm quite aware of where the land is and everything, having walked over it and been available. I just wanted a clarification that what are your timeframes? Why are you placing here for long term? Are you actually going to apply in the near term for a resource consent to a plan change?
We would love to get on with it ASAP. In fact, we have put it under the fast track as well.
Okay, so you have. I was just interested in that from that point of view, because this is a long-term.
If I can indulge in a couple of minutes more, our strategy is quite simple. We pick up a large tract of land, we develop it in stages. So we are not going to go and smash through 400 dwellings. We will see what's the requirement and supply to the market 3 different products. So we would target what we call a lifestyle product for 25 plus. We would target a product for more senior living, which is still independent living. And if possible, we would like to have the first stage of care.
Okay.
And then we organically grow, deliver, in stages, more of it. But I think TA is ready for the first stage right now.
So you would be more interested in putting a submission to our long-term plan as well, or not?
We would, right? That's a
Yeah,
technical
so
question
I guess the long-term plan is around funding for infrastructure as well too. So yeah, it sits on the edge of town now and the infrastructure is at the gate. So I don't think there's a conversation to be had with council in terms of delivery of that infrastructure, but there's a developer cost in that too. So I don't see that there's any direct requirement for LTP. Yeah.
All right, interesting stuff. Okay, hey, again, thanks both for presenting this morning. Now, before we break for lunch, everybody, we're just going to do a quick resolution. So Kirsty's going to speak to that.
So thank you. We've received some additional information from Murray Osmond, who is submitter number 1126 and will be presenting to you at 1:15 or thereabouts this afternoon. As with previous submitters who provided additional information in support of their submission, we're recommending an amendment to the recommendation. Joe, I understand that you're going to bring that up on the screen.
Okay, everybody, here's the amendment on the screen. Is everyone happy with that? Just, yes, okay. Can I have a mover and a seconder, Philip and Mike? All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, and now just asking staff and elected members, how long would you like for lunch?
Short as possible.
As long as possible?
Short as possible.
Short as possible. Yeah, no, I know that the summit is coming at 12:45, but I think we could probably, should we say half an hour? 12:50 back? Is that okay with everybody? Or do you want to make it a bit longer?
No.
Half an hour? Everyone's agreed? Okay, see you back at 12:50.
Good.